Hello, everyone. This is Andres Restart. I am joined by Sky Swords Alyssa. Her channel will be linked in the description below. And tonight, we're just talking about what would make the ultimate Zelda game. Yesterday, I asked you guys on the community page to share your ideas. So I'll be checking the community page. If you guys sent me a message on, at least a couple people sent me a message on Discord. So I'll check there. But if you sent me a message about it, we'll be talking about your ideas. And of course, if you're here in the chat, share your ideas at me. And we'll be kind of like looking at everyone's ideas, trying to kind of piece together what would be like the ultimate Zelda game. And that's pretty much the plan. So, Alyssa, you were telling me, thank you for coming, by the way, on
thanks for
fairly
inviting
short
me.
notice. I'm happy to have you. But you were telling me that you would like the return of heart containers, right?
Yeah.
And I told you I don't like heart containers. I'm not a fan. But the reason why I'm not a fan of them is because I felt that with prior Zelda games, and I'm speaking mostly on the 3D Zelda games, right? They were kind of like really easy. And so with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, the games have gotten harder again. So maybe there is reason to go back to heart containers, but share me your actual idea here.
Well, like I just felt like I'm not sure that they're gonna stay completely away from shrines. I kind of hope that they don't do like a ton of shrines again. But if we had like little dungeons like that and had certain little puzzles where we got that little piece of heart, I don't know. I personally liked having different rewards for these challenges rather than just the spirit orbs, the light blessings. Oh, I'm blanking.
You're good.
Yeah.
So are you saying you don't want the shrines to come back, or you do?
I don't really, but I wouldn't mind it if they had like a smaller chunk of them. You know what I mean? Like not over 100, but
Yeah, like so when I kind of think about this era of Zelda, and I think about what they did with Tears of the Kingdom and how there's so many things that has, it's very similar to Breath of the Wild, right? It has a lot in common with its predecessor, and but I think that's intentional. I don't think everything that we saw happen again in Tears of the Kingdom is all of a sudden a future staple for future Zelda games.
that's
And
true.
that can include shrines. I think a lot of what they did was just to kind of have that carryover because they are meant to be directly connected to each other. It's, Tears of the Kingdom is a direct sequel. So when they go into the next Zelda game, while I do think there will be some things that are going to carry over, not everything. And I'm not sure, maybe it's shrines, maybe it isn't shrines. I think what they have to do is they do have to think about how they're going to fill up the world, because if they're going to give us another game that's focused on adventure, I think that's what they prioritize with these games, adventure above all else. They're going to give us a big world to explore. Will it be bigger? Will it be denser? That's another debate, right? But they're going to think of ways to help to fill up that world, and shrines are a really good way to do it. So if you don't have shrines, what do you have instead?
I want like mini dungeons, bigger shrines, but like more puzzles, different rooms. Because there are some shrines that are actually like really fun. Like there are ones where you have to find the chest to get the key to get through a door to go like to the shrine. Uh, to get
Yeah.
the blessing. But I definitely want, like, I think they are on the right track with these dungeons. I definitely like them a lot better than the Divine Beasts, for sure. I like the themes, but honestly, when I got in the first dungeon and they said about like 4 terminals of some sort, I was like, man, not again. So I really don't want like that whole terminal thing again, for sure.
Yeah. So how I kind of look at it, like, again, I think the terminal thing is more so about continuing the trend from Breath of the Wild, the
That's
Tears of the
fair.
Kingdom. I think especially that part, I think that part is just a Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild thing. And I think the next Zelda game is gonna do things a bit differently. And I hope they do, because I kind of agree. The terminal thing, I don't hate it, but I
Yeah.
think there are better dungeons they can make for
Yeah,
sure.
like, it
Like,
just doesn't feel as creative. You're doing essentially the same thing.
Yeah, there's an established pattern, so once you know what the pattern is, you kind of know what you're gonna do for the next dungeons, and I
Yeah.
think they did a pretty good job of mixing it up with the lightning temple, like, that one
Mhm.
was pretty good once we were actually in the dungeon, but definitely I hope that each dungeon kinda just has its own thing, and you kinda have to figure it out again
Yeah,
each time.
exactly.
I like the idea of having the mini dungeons, and so maybe what they can do is it's we this next Zelda game. I don't know how big it's going to be. Maybe it's a little bit smaller technically, but it's more dense, right? And
Yeah, I
so
kinda like that, to be honest.
it doesn't have to be as big.
Yeah,
But
no.
if everything we find is unique and varied, more so than what we
Yes,
saw in the prior Zelda games, I think that would make a big difference.
I
Like
agree.
I would love to see, yeah, sure, mini dungeons. Give us another ice cavern, right? Give us another
Yeah,
well,
stuff like that, yeah.
but all over, you know? And it's challenging though, because you look at a lot of big open world games, the way they're able to make the game so massive is by, I don't want to say repeating content, but remixing the same content in different
Yeah.
places. Like it goes beyond just Zelda. Like look at, say, for example, Elden Ring, another really a good example of a popular open world game. Like there's a lot of repeating things. Like there's a lot of bosses that you fight again. There's a lot of enemies that you fight again. There's even a lot of like mini dungeons or the catacombs, right, where you go underground, and there are differences between them, but they have the same sort of aesthetic. There are similar traps and there are similar enemies. And it's just kind of like, okay, this one is a puzzle that takes you mostly to the right. This one will take you mostly to the left. And there's more variety there, but they do that. It's a way for devs to mix in more content. And so I kind of hope that with this next game, they find a way to just make it feel more, I guess, organic. Because when you do have a lot of the repeating stuff, I think it takes away a
Yeah.
bit from the feel of it being like a living, breathing world. Now, if there's a story reason for it, okay, right? Because like with the shrines, well, literally they were all designed by the same people. So if that's what it is, sure. But it would be cool if, yeah, maybe there are shrines still, but maybe to your point, maybe there's less of them, right? Maybe we want to get like 30 to 60, but
Yeah.
there are still are other mini dungeons on top of that. There are just there still are random ice caverns and wells and just things that have their own sort of unique spin. And so it's just more varied. And I think that'll make a big difference.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. But we kind of moved past the heart piece thing, though. We're going to get to the chat in a moment, by the way. Guys, if you could like to stream, that would be super helpful. I'd very much appreciate it. But, like, how do you think they could bring back heart containers or heart pieces
Well,
in a way that would be good or better?
uh, I think that they could do it through quests, because I feel like a lot of quests in these last few games, we get, like, rupees or food. We don't really get now we got cool, like, glider fabrics for some of them, so, that's like, it's
Something.
different. Like, some of them are just very repetitive, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I changed my glider once.
I change mine all the time.
Well, so I didn't care. My point is,
You didn't
it
care.
wasn't a great reward for
I'm
me.
I'm, like, obsessed with customization, so I like changing aesthetics of stuff all the time.
Well, that works. I'm not saying you can't have those things.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
no,
there are going to be rewards that you just don't care about. I would say most games,
for
when I do
sure.
a quest and they give me a reward, I'm like, oh great, I'm never going to use that. I would
Yep.
like I did just beat Elden Ring, and I would say 95% of all the challenges, dungeons, quests, or whatever I did, they would give me an item. Like, okay, I'm still going to use my spears as I've been using
Yeah,
for the last 90 hours. So,
yeah.
um,
I've been
yeah,
playing Skyrim again, and I started, like, changing up the different things because I ended up maxing out my bow skill, and I'm close to my conjuration, so I was like, "Oh, I don't really like two-handed weapons," but I'm like, I need to level up, so I had to,
yeah.
change things. So it is interesting to change up the play styles a little bit, but you do kinda usually stick to that, like, little niche, with what you're good with.
For sure. For sure. So I guess with that in mind though, right, when you have a reward that it's something that works for everyone, right? Because if they just give you, oh, like here's a really cool weapons class or here's a new fabric, and if it doesn't interest you, then all right, that was kind of a useless reward for you personally. It kind of depends on the player. But let's say it's just another heart piece, right? Technically, that benefits everyone, you
Yeah.
know? So I guess you could argue that. I mean, it's really not that heart pieces aren't too different from whatever it is we get, like the spirit orbs.
Yeah.
Because once you get a certain amount, that
Yeah, it's
becomes
4.
it will become a heart container or I don't know, the other
Little
things it
stamina
is.
chunk.
Could be a stamina chunk. And then I guess in Tears of the Kingdom they also had the Zonai battery that they could stack up as well, but that was connected through Zonai, which I actually liked that system. I thought that was pretty fun. But
Give us that magic meter again. Let Link cast some spells. Some every now and then, well, I guess now we can teleport, so it wouldn't really matter that much. But some other Zelda games I'm playing, like some of the older ones, I'm like, man, Farore's Wind would be really nice in this dungeon, or using Uku.
okay,
But
yeah, I mean I'm all for like just a lot more like that. That
yeah,
would be cool. And I wonder, like maybe there's different ways to go about that, because something that I think that the whole team seems to have fallen in love with now is building systems and having more than one way to do thing, and having things kind of happen organically through their systems. So like if they're going to have different abilities, maybe there's almost like they almost build like a physics based power system, if that makes any sense. So maybe like you can obtain a particular element, and then you eventually also obtain a way to bend that element, or apply that element in different ways, right? So maybe at
okay,
some point you obtain fire magic, and at first you can't do much with fire magic, but eventually you obtain the ability to maybe like spread that fire magic, or
yeah,
rather apply it differently. Like you can apply it to your arrows or to your sword, and then all
yeah,
of a sudden you have a flame spear, right? You have a fire
yeah,
sword. And so maybe they can kind of do something like that, where there's certain abilities you get, and then as you progress you find different ways to apply them. And then, at least it's something that people can constantly experiment with, and that could be pretty cool. And I guess in the case of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, you're usually not using one weapon class, right? You're kind of
yeah,
changing it around all the time. So maybe in that regard, you could argue that the reward system is a little bit better, because you're usually, if you're going to get a weapon, you're going to use it, but then it
yeah.
breaks. That's a whole other thing that we're going to have to tackle. But before we do, let's check in with the chat, guys. Let me know how everything is looking and sounding. I'd very much appreciate that. Let me see if I can catch up to the live chat here, and then I'm going to check my different messages on different ideas you guys have sort of suggested. So AJ Thomas, there are rumors about a Legend of Zelda spinoff where Zelda is playable, so a companion Tears of the Kingdom story and seeing more of her journey in the imprisoning war would be perfect. We have no idea what this supposed rumored spinoff of a Princess Zelda is, but that I would definitely be into that personally, for sure. There's a lot of things I would be into regarding this possible like Princess Zelda spinoff. But Alyssa, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about
So,
this
so I,
rumor?
the rumor in general.
Sure.
I would kind of really like to see Zelda have like her own game. I'm not entirely sure what specifically I would want though, because so many people have had so many good ideas. Like I do like the Tears of the Kingdom one, because that's my favorite part of the story is what Zelda has to go through in Tears of the Kingdom. So being able to experience that firsthand and witnessing what is going on in Hyrule at that time, I would really like to, play through that. But some of the other ones, like Sheik, I would really like to see what Zelda was doing while Link was in that stasis for 7 years and training up her. I'm sure she had to train, right, to be able to
Yeah.
become a Sheikah.
Yeah. I mean, she was just a pampered princess
Yeah.
before, you
So maybe
assume.
she had trials and stuff, and we don't know what kind of trials she went through.
Actually, I think it's a pretty fair assumption that she was like a pampered princess that wasn't like too athletic or anything like that, because
Yeah.
what they showed us was like there was a lot of guards that you have to get through just to find her in a garden. Like, and
That's true.
she can't just like leave. She has to be escorted out. Like, so she's very highly protected. So I gotta think that she's probably she probably needed a lot of training, so it makes sense. I mean, she becomes a monster as Sheik. Like Sheik is so acrobatic and capable, and especially the way she's portrayed in Smash. Like it's
Oh,
insane what she can do in
yes.
Smash. So I gotta think that. I mean, maybe they wouldn't. They would just have like a cutscene of where she's training, or I don't know. But I would like to see at some point them explore what happened there. That'd be cool. Maybe in a remake of Ocarina of Time, maybe as a spin-off game. There's definitely options there. Adam Roan, yeah, you can't wait for Paper Mario. I'm already playing Paper Mario. Game's out. It's public. Did you get it pre-ordered and you're waiting for it to come in the mail? Or are you just picking it up tomorrow? Are you playing Paper Mario, Alyssa? No?
No, I'm not too into turn-based games.
Okay.
Besides Pokemon, and even then, I'm kind of falling off the Pokemon.
Unless it's Legends.
Yes, unless it's Legends. Yes,
Okay.
I'm hoping we see more ZA in the next direct.
That's a good.
Don't know that we will, but
maybe we've seen Pokemon stuff in directs more recently, so it could happen. They got to give us more news on the game at some point this year, so
oh yeah,
they were getting close. Maki Mar, you messaged me on Twitter. I am going to check my Twitter messages. I'm just going to catch up on the live chat here. I'll check Twitter. I'll check Discord. I'll check the community page, and we'll cycle through. Hello there, Having Hope. Hello there, Carlos. Calamity, you're going to miss shrines. Well, again, we don't know if shrines are going to be gone. I'm just making the point that we don't know.
yeah.
They're going to need to do something to fill it up. And I mean, clearly, puzzles are an important part to Zelda. I just hope that whatever they do, even if it is shrines again, I just want there to be more variety. I think that's one of the reasons why I really like Trial of the Sword, because Trial of the Sword showed these different environments that were within a shrine, but they had different elements and themes going on, which is really cool. So I'm all for it. I just want more variety.
Yeah, and the enemies progress too, and there was different enemies. Now I know there's usually either the guardians or the Zonai constructs in the shrines now, but in the future, if they could just put a whole bunch of different enemies like that, you're fighting different bosses instead of just going in and expecting the same type of enemy. You're like, oh, I'm only gonna fight constructs, and I don't have to worry about anything else. Like, it would be cool to be like, oh shit, there's a Hynix in this one or something, you know?
Yeah, you don't see it coming. You're surprised.
Yeah, exactly.
I want the surprise factor. Because you can definitely, I would say, with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, there's a little bit of a, okay, I kind of know what's coming, right?
Yeah.
It goes back to what you were saying earlier, basically. Carlos, my day is going okay. How's yours? I agree. They need to add Donkey Kong 64 to NSO. That would be awesome. Calamity saying a semi-linear world would be great. Or just, yeah, yeah.
I would like that too. I like we talked about earlier that they really want to be like almost limitless. They want to have multiple ways to solve things. But I kind of like being roadblocked. I like being like, oh, I can't go this way yet. Okay, and then you get that item and you're like, oh, I know where to go with that. You know, you get like, I mean, the backtracking kind of is meh, but
I like being roadblocked and still being able to find a way around said roadblock.
That's fair too. That's fair too.
It feels like they made it really easy for me to do.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's not a roadblock. It's just a.
I don't want to do this.
Yeah, whatever. The M of 52. I'd rather have like 30 to 40 mini dungeons than 100 plus shrines. I have the sniffles.
Less.
Excuse me. Yeah, I think a lot of us are on the same wavelength here. Like, I want an open world, but I think there should be moments where there is linearity. Like, I would say for the actual dungeons, you could make those linear. I'm okay with that. Like, do I like the concept of being able to like enter a dungeon from any possible angle? Sure, if possible. But also, I think in order to make some of the more like really cool, like inspired dungeons like we had in prior 3D Zeldas, they need to be linear. Or if there is a way to do that in open, they haven't figured it out yet.
I
The
wouldn't
lighting
mind.
temple is the best one, and that's kind of linear. It has phases. So, what were you gonna say?
I don't remember. It'll come back, I'm sure.
Cool. Retro cheats. The ultimate Zelda game would be Zelda: The Wand of Gamelon HD remake.
Oh, I was gonna say, make the mini dungeons non-linear and make the bigger dungeons linear. So you can just be like walking around and all of a sudden you stumble upon a little mini dungeon. You're like, oh, look at that.
Okay.
But
All
then
right. That
like another one, like let's say the water temple won't appear until you do like a fire temple, and then all of a sudden like you're in the water or whatever, and then it like rises up from the.
I like the idea of like maybe one way they can handle this is it's kind of what they did with Pokemon, Scarlet and Violet. Give us an open world, and the open world is completely open. You can go wherever you want within the open world, but as you progress in the game, there are changes. And so there are phases, right? Like maybe there are 3 dungeons you can reach at first. Once you beat those 3 dungeons, you cause a linear story moment, which causes a shift in the open world. And then there are 3 other dungeons. You do those, then there is a linear story moment, causes another shift, and then you do those, and then that opens up the final boss. Like I would be okay with that. And then maybe within those phases there are still some story beats that you can do kind of out of order depending on where you go, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you go to the forest area first and you experience that sort of story, and then you do the fire, you can do them out of order. Kind of like, I mean, it's not even new to just Breath of the Wild and Tears. Like they did it in some other Zelda games, like Ocarina of Time. You could do the fire or water temple out of order, or the shadow or spirit temple out of order, and so you could experience those story moments separately. They didn't have to be done in one exact order, but there were core major moments that needed to happen in a particular order. Your childhood, then you had the light and forest temple, then there's fire, water, then spirit, shadow, and then there's the final phase. So I think phases might be a way to do that, and they would be kind of cool because then we could see changes to the open world that it's just interesting.
Yeah, we could have access to areas we couldn't before. Like
Yeah.
the roadblock, that's our roadblock. We have to do the 3 dungeons, and then all of a sudden now we can go to all these other places.
And then how they go about changing that world, that could lead to some interesting, like just from like concepts and designs. Like how do they do that while it still makes sense? How do they all of a sudden like a new dungeon materializes? It kind of goes back to like our theories. Like, okay, so you look at what happened in Breath of the Wild. How were there able to be more dungeons? Well, apparently there's a whole bunch of underground stuff that opened up. There's the upheaval. So what if like we played a game where there was an upheaval like event that happened in the middle of the game that caused significant changes? I think that would be really cool. I
Yeah,
mean,
like you complete a dungeon, earthquake happens, the ground cracks, all of a sudden now you can go explore whatever's down there.
exactly. And then
Tsunami comes and now half the map's water. Just kidding. Not half the map, but maybe like
what if
or
though? Yeah, what if though? Which is also not is something they've kind of done before in Skyward Sword. They flood
that
the
yeah.
forest area, and it's like a new
Temporarily
area
cool. Yeah.
afterwards. So
I hate
that's
swimming in that though. In that one.
well. What if in this one you can swim, but you can also sail?
That would be pretty cool.
So there's options. Let's see here. All right, let me get to the super chats. Okay, Sam Talks Games. Thank you for super chat, buddy. Sam, I love New Zelda, but there are a lot of things they can definitely improve on. More progression with the game, mini dungeons, more focused story, etc. We're on the same page. You're presenting similar ideas. I'm all for it. You say more progression with the game, though. I wonder what you mean by that part.
Does he mean like the length of time you put into the game? I'm not sure.
I mean, maybe it's kind of to what we're speaking on, how we see changes as we go throughout the adventure. Maybe it not only impacts like the world we explore, but also maybe the characters we interact with too. So they feel more organic. I'm not sure if that's what you're getting at, but it's something I would want. Steve Bazil with the super chat. Thank you for the super chat, buddy. Steve says they mastered open air, and now it's time for open sea. Let's go. I feel like they had a lot of water and didn't do that much with it in Breath and Tears. I kind of listen. I don't want a Wind Waker 2.
Yeah,
but I kind of want a Wind Waker 2. Like I want a Wind Waker 2 as part of a bigger
a
game.
Wind Waker 1.5.
There you go. Wind Waker expansion.
Yeah.
That would be fun. Natsu has joined as a member. Welcome. Glad to have you as a member, buddy. So let me check. Let me see what messages I have on Twitter. I opened up. Maybe I missed it. So I'm checking my Twitter. I thought I opened up my Twitter so I could see messages, but I don't see any. Was I added instead? I'm eating Skittles, by the way. I'm sorry.
I was kind of thinking that. I've been wondering, like, I wonder what he's eating. I don't know when to ask, though.
Yeah, I'm the Skittles.
Basic Skittles?
Basic Skittles.
I like the sour ones.
They have lime in there. Lime is mixed. Oh, sour is really good. But I'd be making a lot of. I'd be making a lot of faces. Probably not a good idea to do live. I mean, or maybe it's like a great idea.
Yeah, it'd be amusing.
Could be.
Maybe you'll get super chats. Pucker up, Andres.
Okay.
Sorry.
We're good. Maki, I'm looking. I know you said that you sent me a message on Twitter. I don't see it. I haven't, unless, I don't know, like, is it because I have too many, like, backed up messages that maybe new messages aren't showing? I'm now randomly deleting messages from years ago.
I don't use Twitter, so I'm no help.
I don't know, it's weird. Oh, wait, there, thank you, found it. You bumped it for me. I appreciate you. Okay. All right. So Maki's got a lot here. I'm going to go ahead and read it. All right. For the ultimate Zelda game, have a portal to go to another dimension to change things in the present. The main story would take place in the present in a time where Hyrule is flourishing with life. Castle Town is massive. As an example, people everywhere. Then a disaster strikes and villages panic. It wouldn't go deserted like Breath of the Wild Tears of the Kingdom. But Ganon or another villain with him would be actively corrupting the world as you continue the game. Okay. Craters here and there, melted down trees, areas with geysers bursting, skies purple and gloomy, a world with so much creepy stuff happening out of place. The portals would allow Link to enter another dimension, still in the present, to get Twilight Shards pieces or something to that extent. The game has huge dungeons in the main world and the dimensional world, but once you enter, it's linear and has the classic Zelda-themed temples and mini-bosses and epic music with a final boss fight. Okay. Also, the sky would be a major part too. Sky villages, bring back Minish people, and have quests where you are Mini. Okay. I kind of wish they brought back the Minish in Tears because they had like ideas for similar type of people for Breath, but they didn't do it. I would like to see that, but there's more. And throughout the game, you are rescuing villagers and sending them to a hidden village that Ganon does not know about. All right.
Ooh, okay.
You're building something up here.
Okay.
At the end of the game, he finds out and is about to wreak havoc on the entire place, and that's when you have the final fight with him. And Zelda would start the game with you, but then have Ganon kidnap her for Triforce reasons, of course. Triforce is back in the game. That would be nice to see. But this time, even though she's captured, we get to play as her while in Ganon's base. And this is where Sheik comes into play. Maybe she uses magic to trick Ganon and his army into kidnapping her. Okay. All right, so Zelda's not out of the story, just away from Link as Sheik. Okay. So she forms an identical copy of her using magic and lets that form be kidnapped. and the real Zelda disguises as Sheik. And wait. She forms an identical copy of her using magic and lets that form be kidnapped. Okay, got
Oh,
it. I
okay,
got it now.
okay.
Kind of, it's not too different from putting like a doll in your bed and cover it with sheets and pillows. Got it. And the real Zelda disguises as Sheik and explores a dark lair and eventually escapes near the end of the game. Okay. So I like the ideas here. It's kind of like a modern take on Twilight Princess, but also integrating Zelda more heavily with the story and giving her Sheik moments. I think that would be a pretty good idea. It feels like most of us are kind of on the same train of thought when it comes to, hey, we want linear dungeons. We can have an open world, but give us linear dungeons and have like a sort of at least semi-linear story progression. I think, yeah, I mean, does anyone disagree with that? Then maybe we should put a poll. My poll, okay. How do we want the structure of the next Zelda? Full open, like Breath and Tears. Full linear, like Skyward Sword. Or something in between. Okay. I think I know what the answer is. But surprise me. 100% so far. But how many votes? We only have a few votes. At some point it's gonna change. At some point. Okay. All right, let's see here. We have another super chat from Chrono Rig. Since Shiver is Miami, will you be filing a job application? LOL. And I would like to see an action game of Zelda being turning Sheik into an ocarina. Okay. So I have noted that Shiver Entertainment is in Miami, Florida. I don't think I'm gonna do anything with that. I don't want to get arrested, and also I don't have any coding experience. I honestly, I don't. For me, I don't even think like it doesn't sound fun to me. Like I think I like coming up with concepts and designs. Sure, like I would love to like take on more of like like I could give you ideas, right? We can talk about what ideas make sense, but I'm not going to code the game. I don't know how to do
Yeah.
that, and it doesn't fascinate me. So I don't think I would bring much value there, and especially if they're like a support studio that's mostly focused on porting games that already exist. Like there's not even that much creative work being done there. I don't want to say, I'm sure there's creativity involved, and there may not be just porting, but yeah, I just don't think I'd bring much to the table. So also I'd rather work for myself. So yeah. But if they need someone for some creative ideas, for business inquiries, team restart at andresrestart.com. Yeah. So far, the poll with 21 votes in, 71% has said something in between full open and full linear. That doesn't surprise me. Maki Mario, thanks for reading. I really like the concept where we rescue people and take them somewhere Ganon doesn't know about. That is actually,
Yeah, I like that a lot.
that part is very unique. It'll be interesting. I like that idea. I mean, I like the idea of a Zelda game that changes as you play.
Mhm.
Like, I would love to see. I mean, like for example, Lookout Landing in Tears of the Kingdom. I guess there are some things that slightly change as you progress, but it would be interesting to actually have a village that changes, or like Hateno.
Mhm.
Not Hateno, Terrytown.
Okay, yeah,
Like
yeah.
like Terrytown, you actually build that village. Like I would love
Mhm.
for there to be a Zelda game where there are changes throughout the game. Maybe if you are sneaking people into a particular town, like I want to see more of that. But that would require a lot more focus on side questing. And while I guess you could say Breath and Tears have done a better job with side quests than most other Zelda games, they don't compare to Majora's Mask. And also, Majora's Mask is much smaller scale.
Mhm.
Like, I want Majora's Mask level side quests, but on a larger scale for something like Breath or Tears of the Kingdom. And that might be asking too much. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I love the side quests in Majora's Mask though too. Like they're so lengthy. It is
Yeah.
a little with the time constraints though. It is like you really got to plan your course. But
Yeah.
I don't think they would have a time limit on an open world game.
No. No. I mean, there could be certain things that are time limited, but
Oh yeah.
yeah. So, let me check some of the oh, hold on. I think I had some ideas that were sent to me on Discord. Okay. All right. So, Big Boy 29 on Discord shared with me some things. All right, here it is. Let me know what you think. All right, so let me check out this idea. They wrote a paper. It's not a long one, but it's substantial. Now, this idea is from Big Boy 29. Okay. All right, I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read this through. There's a few paragraphs. Okay. And supposedly they got a lot of the ideas before they knew about the depths for Tears of the Kingdom. I think they expanded on it a little bit afterwards. So it's interesting to note here. All right, so introduction and dungeon lead up. In the province of Akala lies a ruined citadel, slowly being devoured by nature. Legends say it was the site of a battle during the Great Calamity, which brought an end to the legend. Bosphoramus. Okay, I messed up. I botched that. It was a site of a battle during the Great Calamity, which brought an end to the Bosphoramus dynasty of old. Denizens of nearby Terry City have long shunned it, calling it a cursed place. Recently, though, it has become impossible to ignore. Monsters have begun emerging during the night to launch raids on Terry City. At first, these were ordinary foes the people of Hyrule were used to dealing with, bokoblins, moblins, and the like. But over time, stranger things have joined them, great spiders and abdomens and great spiders with abdomens, resembling skulls joining the monster forces, as do with withered bodies of old Hylian soldiers, reanimated by luminous neon green moss-like substance that coats them. Accordingly, the city's government has developed a plan. While the monsters have been emerging from the Citadel's windows and hidden one-way exits, the proper entrance to Akala Citadel is sealed by boulders and rubble. They so intend to use a powdered keg to blow it open. Oh, the powdered keg. Upon Link's arrival in the town, he's asked to help escort his powder keg to the Citadel's entrance, including helping the soldiers to deal with any monsters who try to stop them. Link may elect to begin the mission any time, similar to a Divine Beast lead-up. Once the powder keg is used to blow up the blocked entrance to the Citadel, monsters come flooding out, and Link must work alongside the Terry City soldiers to beat them back. When the dust settles, however, Link is the only one not exhausted, wounded from the fighting. Being the hero he is, he volunteers to go clear out the rest of the monsters from the Citadel ruins. Note, if there were some usual magical artifacts Link needed, it could easily be rumored that one was in there. All right, so that's just the introduction. There's a few other paragraphs to read here, but like immediately just reading this, like I kind of love how Big Boy here is talking about Terry City. It's not a town anymore; it's a city. So I appreciate the progression, but I also like how, well, one, the bringing back the powdered keg. I love that from Majora's Mask. It's so cool. But also at the end of this part here, when the fight, like the fighting part, it actually reminds me a lot of the sequence we saw in the lead up to the Lightning Temple, because there was a battle that took place
Mhm.
where you were fighting alongside the Gerudo, and then eventually you go
Yeah.
into the Lightning Temple, right? So there's a similarity there. But that moment where Link decides to enter in, that part, what played in my head is the moment in like Skyward Sword, like when you decide to go into a dungeon, you do the walk down, and there's like
Mhm.
this little bit of music that plays up, like that the 3 or 4 second like cutscene. That I kind of see in my head as Link
Yeah.
enters the Citadel ruins after
I'd
the
love to
fight.
see that again though in the next one. I
So
love
that'd
those
be pretty cool.
cutscenes.
Yeah, they were pretty
Sorry.
epic. No, you're good. So that was the introduction to the dungeon. Now, part 1 to the dungeon.
Let's
Dungeon part
go.
1. Akala Citadel interior. The first part of the dungeon is the interior of Akala Citadel itself, mostly above ground, but with 1 or 2 basement floors. It would have a typical lock and key style, allowing Link to run around with multiple keys in his pocket at once, and to have a choice about which locked doors he went through first. Keys can be hidden in typical places like under guard by monsters or puzzles, as well as in hidden chambers within the Citadel. Link can also find a variety of weapons here, some decayed by time, but some in surprisingly good condition. As Link goes lower into the Citadel, he encounters more and more of the reanimated soldiers covered in the green, moss-like substance. At the bottom of the Citadel, he faces the first mini-boss, a reanimated guard captain who slowly falls more and more into the luminous substance's grip, which makes him stronger and more bestial, less tactical. After Link defeats the mini-boss, he unlocks a tunnel deeper into the ground. Ooh, phases. I love the mini-boss concept.
Mhm.
Like we've seen, like Stalfos and things like that. We've seen kind of like we've gone through that motif of like fighting ancient soldiers, but I like the mix up of there being this green like substance, which again we've seen substances corrupting people in the past, but the idea that we see it getting more aggressive and changing throughout the very fight itself, I love that, and I would love to see that in an actual game. Like that would be really cool, because especially like if the game's already like somewhat relatively challenging and the boss can hit you just because of how tactical it is, but then it becomes faster and more aggressive and more bestial. I like
Yeah.
that thinking, but it would force you to have to adapt on the fly. There would be more than one moveset, so I imagine players would die against the fight and be like, oh, okay, they changed, so now you have to be ready for that change when you get to that point in the fight. So I think it's cool. I love it.
Have you played Majora's Mask and made it to the end without all the masks?
Yes, it's easier that way.
What? You think the fight without the Fierce Deity mask is easier?
Well, it's easier to do
Oh, well, yeah, you don't have to
to
do all
get.
the side quests, but the
Yeah.
boss fight is
Oh
a
well, the
super
boss fight is
struggle. That's what
is
I mean.
yeah. I'm
That's
trying to
kind of what it
remember.
sounds like to me is because
Yeah,
when you're Fierce Deity Link, you just obliterate him in like 2 minutes. But
yeah,
I remember because that's the first time I played through. I didn't get all the masks, and I was like, oh my god, I probably spent like 30 minutes trying to. I was
yeah.
also a kid though, but
Just thinking on it.
because he does get faster at the one part. Like I'm pretty sure he starts as like the mask, and I think he has like the 4 dungeon boss masks in the room. You have to like hit those, and then he gets like really fast, starts running all around, and then he gets like the wrath phase, and he gets all. I don't
Yeah,
even remember. It's been a long time since I played that one.
it's been a long time for me. I've actually been getting the itch to play Majora's Mask recently. Like that's
Yeah.
that's probably the next Zelda I'm going to replay. So, but I'm just kind of like thinking about it. I do remember it being hard, but
Mhm.
yeah, and in Fierce Deity you just kind of blitz them. But
Mhm.
now I'm kind of thinking, man, it would be nice if Fierce Deity had a challenge. If I'm not mistaken, there's a way to like fight the bosses again as Fierce Deity, which is neat. But
Mhm.
it would be really cool. This is me thinking way down the pipeline, right? Like, so with the assumption we get a remake of Ocarina of Time where there's some new content in there, then it opens the door for Majora's Mask to also be remade. And if they remake Majora's Mask, I would like to have, I'm not asking for a lot, but give us a post game boss fight, the same way they added post game boss fights to Thousand Year Door. And one of the post game boss fights is just like a ridiculously challenging fight that you're meant to fight as Fierce Deity. And even with Fierce Deity, it feels ridiculous. It's just, that's kind of what it's meant for.
It's like this. What if it's the source of where the mask came from? That's the boss you have to fight. Whoever made that mask. You have to fight them
Yeah,
as Fierce Deity Link. And
maybe
he's like
maybe
this great, powerful mage.
maybe it's like an epilogue quest. It's a short little epilogue quest. Where
Yeah.
like, hey, so like, what's the source of this? Like, you think you defeated all the evil, but there's still something about this mask. We got to make sure this is right. So that would be awesome. But let's continue on because there's more to this dungeon. We've only gone through part one of Big Boy's dungeon here. So there's more to this epic quest. So dungeon part 2, Luminous Tunnel. This part of the dungeon serves as a more linear interlude type segment. Here, Link runs into more monsters covered in the luminous green substance, and as he gets deeper into the tunnel, it becomes darker. Here it becomes apparent that the heretofore vaguely named luminous green substance is in some way a cousin to Malice as seen in Breath of the Wild. Link sees pools of it with eyes that can be shot to destroy them, just like the Malice pools and often seen in Divine Beasts and other Ganon-infested locations in Breath of the Wild. Instead of Malice skulls, however, they spawn green Malice-infested enemies. However, since the tunnel grows darker as Link goes, destroying these Malice pools means he's deprived of a light source. Additionally, there are chasms with invisible, linked to the past-style paths that can only be seen in the green light of these green Malice pools. Near the end of the tunnel, Link begins to see Mothula, which are designed much like their Wind Waker appearance, but this time they have additional ability. While the females lay eggs as usual, the males, marked by different patterning, spray green malice from their mouths like venom. The mini-boss that ends this section is a large male Mothula that can rally others to its cause. When defeated, it drops the dungeon item, a luminous green pearl that Link can put into his lantern. Finally, the tunnels opens into a vast cavern system, bringing Link to the final part of the dungeon. I love bringing back Mothula, and now as when I read this part, it became very clear to me. Like, I understand Big Boy said that they wrote this before Tears of the Kingdom for the most part, and so it's clear that this is kind of written as like, okay, where could there be a dungeon if in a sequel to Breath of the Wild? And so I kind of see where they're coming from with this, and this is why they sort of assumed Tarrytown will become a city, and it did expand. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's very interesting. But on to dungeon part 3, Mothula's Lair. The final part of the dungeon requires Link to make extensive use of his new lantern light as he traverses through an ancient Zonai armory weapons lab that's been infested by the underground Mothula colony. Here he must face down Mothula, as well as the Zonai constructs and devices they've infested with their green malice. The entire place is built around a massive sphere dome at its center, which Link must slowly unbind as well as a key to find to unlock. When Linker enters this chamber, he finds is a nest of the Queen Mothula, who is the dungeon boss. She is considerably more intelligent than the others, capable of using a piece of experimental Zonai technology to manipulate gravity. In her first phase, the sphere has a flat bottom where Link can walk, or maybe it's just a dome, so it'd have a flat bottom anyway. And her usage of gravity mostly involves flipping pieces of debris at Link while other Mothula, etc., harass him. In the second phase, however, the flat floor falls away, and she instead uses the Zonai gravity machine thingy to manipulate gravity in the room. Maybe she plugs it into something? This forces Link to run around the inside of the sphere, Mario Galaxy style, as he continues to fight her. Upon defeating her, he earns a heart container, as well as whatever progression marker the game uses. I love it.
Me too.
Love
Big
it.
Boy knows what's up.
Yeah, Big Boy does know what's up. Thank you for that very detailed explanation for your vision for in a dungeon of the Akala Citadel. I think it's super awesome. It would fit really well into Tears of the Kingdom if they went with a slightly different direction. And I like that you still kind of had a lot of elements from prior Zelda games, like the return of like you get an actual like new ability or item in the dungeon. I kind of want to see that come back.
Me
Like
too.
I think it's great that they give us a massive abilities right from the get go, and as we progress in the game, we learn how to use them better. And there are different ways we get stronger just by having better like armor and weapons and better stamina and battery. Like I like those elements, but I think it'd be even cooler if we just got a new item that
Mhm.
that was just cool to use. And what's interesting is that they kind of did that actually, but it was through
Yeah.
the champions, or rather the sages.
Yeah, I
And
thought the same thing.
but
You
I
kinda
didn't
use them as the dungeon item, but it's not the same thing.
it's not the same thing.
No.
Yeah, like it, I think that I so it's cool that they can travel alongside you and they can all
Mhm.
use their abilities, but and they did kind of I think they tried to limit their strength compared to the way they were in Breath of the Wild with the champions. But it also kind of got a little messy and hectic, and
Yeah.
I think I'd rather just have access to one at a time,
Mhm.
or if I can use more than one at a time, it has to be done in a way that feels more natural. Because the way it's done, we have all the sages out. You have to like walk next to them and press A
Yeah.
if the context applies. And I'd rather have it more as just like an item that could have equipped, and I can just press that to use that. Like that to me would be better. Maybe there's just a wheel, kind of how it is for some of the other abilities, except, you don't put the camera there, you put an actual ability there
Or the map.
for the map. Yeah. The like
Why?
those things can go elsewhere. We don't need them there.
No.
So I mean, I think they just wanted to fill up the wheel. Uh,
Yeah.
but it would have been better if those were just things you had there. And maybe it would depend, right? Like in the case of like, for example, Tulin, like that one makes a lot of sense when you're flying
Mhm.
and it works in that way. But I guess when you're on the ground, um, then you would kind of need to like a button press or something like there. You would need more than just context, I guess, because maybe you just want to blow things whenever you want.
I
There's
do
a
it
way
by
to do it.
accident all the time. I don't need him to use his tunnel on the surface, but I
I
do want him to shoot enemies. So
Yeah, that is pretty useful. But I'm not against them roaming around. It's more
yeah.
so like the ability part. Like they can roam around doing
Yeah.
their own thing, but I'd rather the ability just be something I can use. That's it. Like it's just it's a weapon I have, or it's just ability that I have moving forward, like Ultra Hand or something like that, or just bring it back like all those other games. Like make it be like a hook shot. You
Mhm.
equip it and you can use it, and that's it. So, um, but let's see. Do I got? Oh, well, there's a community post that probably has a few different ideas. So, let me get to that. All right. There's a few comments here. So the Speed Forever said open world and linear Zelda combined. Linear part for story and dungeons, and open world you can explore secrets with your items and doing side quests too. Everyone, like most of us, are on the same page here. This is it's what we want. Yeah, for sure. Hark Nerd 1775. I love the idea of a Zelda game in the gameplay form of Breath of the Wild, but dungeons have a tiered approach where you have to complete the first tier of dungeon, like the first tier or something, before you can access the next tier of dungeons, and so on. So this could be blocked by some story element or by items abilities collected in the dungeons. I think is very similar to what I talked about earlier, how like
Yeah.
there are phases to the game, and I totally agree. Basically, I think most of us want there to be an open world, but we want a level of linearity there.
Yeah, we want some, like, structure.
A little bit.
Mhm. Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Not an obscene amount, but a
No.
little bit. Like I think I see a lot of people bring up like Elden Rings, like they like that as an example. I don't. I think I like Elden Ring. I think it's a great game. I jumped into New Game Plus, and I'm pretty far on the New Game Plus. But in terms of like world structure, to me, it doesn't feel that spectacular. But I kind of understand where they're going from. Like for that game, it's kind of like it's almost like a giant curve. And so you kind of go along the giant curve towards the end. And there is some backtracking and stuff in some other side areas, but that's kind of the general thing. As you progress the game, it does kind of have a linear progression, even though you can do a fair bit of sequence breaking. I like having a straight up open world like Breath and Tears where you can go wherever you want. I don't think they should go away from that. I don't think they should design a world where you're moving in just kind of one general direction. I think the way they have it is fine, but I think the phases where I really think that's probably the best way to kind of meet everyone, halfway. Moving on. Julian laughs. This is such a hard question to answer because I think everyone looks for a different experience when going into a game for the first time. Everyone has different opinions on what gives a game replayability. That's absolutely true. I think the memories are great. I really liked piecing together the past as we progress the story. It really needs to be linear though. Whatever piece of the story run across, it needs to be sequential. I'd almost love it if instead of an inanimate puddle we find, it's a storyteller, almost like Picango. I like how we could find his hints at any time, anywhere. Same with Cass. This is why a lot of people loved him. He told a linear story wherever you were. I'm not sure why they didn't stick with that with the memories flashbacks. Okay. Yeah, there's a way to make it make sense, and still have it be linear, us learning the story linearly. I agree with that. How'd you feel about that, Alyssa, with like the actual memories and the way they were told in Tears?
I liked it better in Tears of the Kingdom than Breath of the Wild because it wasn't our own memories, it was what was happening with Zelda. And I didn't know that there was an order, like implied, where to go. And I understand that each of the glyphs match the memory, but I didn't find them in order, so I didn't like seeing things that I wasn't supposed to see yet. So that part I didn't like. But as soon as I got one and I knew it was about Zelda, I was like cracked out. I'm like, I have to go. I literally just went around and found all the glyphs because I had to know.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to find them. I'm not complaining about that. I'm glad there's a challenge to find them.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely easier than in Breath, so I think that was a good thing about the glyphs. So it made it so like everyone's gonna be able to find the story.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a scenario where a lot of people beat Breath of the Wild, but
That
didn't
is
get
true.
the extra scene at the
really
end
think about
because they
that,
didn't get all
yeah.
the memories. Because getting all the memories in Breath of the Wild is kind of a real pain.
Yeah, you had to like look at the pictures and try to figure out like where would that be exactly.
For like one or two of them, I spent hours.
Yeah, I bet. It's been a long time since I played Breath of the Wild, but yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
It was extremely challenging. So I like that they did that, but I do agree that I didn't realize the order, or actually no, I knew there was an order, but once I came upon one in my natural adventure, right? I
Yeah.
didn't want to like, oh, I got here, time to like not go to it. No, I'm gonna go to it there in that moment and see what it is, because clearly the game has been designed so I can play it however I choose. So I would think that the story is done in a similar way, and it is to an extent because I was a little bit annoyed about how there were some big moments you saw before you got to see like some more simpler, calm moments. Like it definitely, there's clearly like a story arc there that was told out of order and it wasn't working perfectly, but it wasn't extremely bad once I got to see the big moment, once I collected all of those. So there was a little bit of linearity there. And I think that little bit of linearity actually worked really well. I just think that maybe they could have maybe placed more linearity. Like maybe like when a certain person gets stabbed in the back, maybe that's actually like something that shouldn't be your second memory you find.
Yeah.
And that should be, okay, you get to this once you found the first three. And then you find three more. And like, so I think, maybe that's a way to kind of balance it out where you do them in phases, just the same way you explore the world. Or they just tell you to in a specific order, regardless of where you go. One or the other. But there's more that Julian was saying here. So let me continue on. Weapon degradation is actually genius in my opinion, but we need a way to keep the weapons we want to hoard. We need to be able to repair our weapons. Give me an Animal Crossing style Hyrule museum to put my weapons armor on display. Make it cost money. Make me collect items from Koroks to complete the museum. Then I will find all 999. Okay, that's a good idea. Dungeons need to be huge and time consuming. I love the concept of a moving, living, breathing dungeon. However, I wish it brought us somewhere. Stage 1 could be the beast, but maybe it travels to a native land and there's a bigger dungeon there where we fix the corruption. It brings us back to Hyrule. That idea freaks me out, but in a really great way. Imagine like you're on the Ark, where where the Wind Temple is, and so you beat that part, and you think, oh, it's just like Breath of the Wild with all the the terminals. But once you beat it, you come out and you're like, wait, where am I? This is not Hyrule anymore. This is space. What's going on?
We're on the moon.
Right, and so there's this, yeah, we're on the moon, and there's this giant, like, ancient, crazy alien structure that you then have to enter on the moon. Like that would have been a mind blowing.
Yeah.
So I really like that idea there. That's a good one. So I would love to see something like that in the future. Julian continues, I have so many more ideas, but since they're sticking with the type of Zelda like Breath of the Wild Tears of the Kingdom, I think this is the most realistic approach to next best mainline Zelda we could get. I love hearing other people's ideas too. Can't wait for the video. Yeah. At some point, I might make a dedicated video on like my own. I've mentioned I have my own like built-in Zelda concept, but as you guys kind of give me your different ideas, I think that will certainly help to shape them. Brothers Courage said young Zelda-Link. I think that was just because I shared the concept art for Ocarina of Time with Link and Zelda, which I really like. There's a lot of really good concept art for Ocarina of Time. It's just so good.
Oh yeah, I love the young Link art.
It's beautiful. Rocket Nadix 5013, the ultimate Zelda game. Okay, all right, we got some paragraphs here. All right, let me drink some water.
Yeah, good idea.
I'm finished my Skittle. Okay. I need a moment. The Skittle's lasting a while. All right. I've got most of it done. Let's start with the world. I think having tutorial areas like the Great Plateau and the Great Sky Island is a must. It's like a miniature version of the world meant to teach you the game by actually doing it rather than listening to an NPC tell you how. Once you get to the world, however, you should be limited to as to where you can go. I don't think you should start off with every item, nor should the world be fully open just yet. Think of it like how you couldn't get to the depths without a paraglider. The world can still be partially open, just not fully until you get certain items. Okay, yeah, I'm about this, right? I like having, an opening area like the Great Plateau or the Great Sky Island. And yeah, maybe the world's still pretty massive and open, but there are still significant parts that are locked off somehow. I'm okay with that. Continuing on. Next to the dungeons, we need at least 6 main dungeons and maybe a 7th in the tutorial area. These are not optional. They should be mandatory. You should be able to reach them and do them in any order, but you have to beat them in an order. Wait. You should be able to reach them and do them in any order, but you have to beat them in order to beat the game. Okay. All right. We're good. Each dungeon should be linear with traps, locked doors, puzzles, mini bosses, and items. Essentially the traditional dungeon experience. Each dungeon item obtained will allow you to access a new part of the overworld. There should also be 3 mini dungeons that you need to find and complete in order to get the Master Sword. These can be optional, but not having the Master Sword for the final battle should lead to an alternate ending. Alternate endings.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about alternate endings?
I don't know. It would be interesting to see like what would happen if you didn't, like, would the fight be harder without the Master Sword? I'd assume too.
Yeah.
And what if Link doesn't win because he doesn't have the Master Sword?
Interesting. Like, what if you you get to a point and like you think you win, but then you still die?
Yeah.
That's just the way it does.
Yeah.
That would be very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I would kind of take it or leave it though. If it was like a really interesting, I can't really think of one, but if they made it interesting,
personally,
give me a reason to replay it, I guess. But
I'm not a huge fan of alternative endings. Like, I like extra endings where if you
Mhm.
do more, you find out more, right?
Yeah.
But it's not like literally a different ending. Um, I mean, there are games that do it, and I still like them. Like, I mean, like I brought up Elden Ring several times, and bringing it up again, it has multiple endings, and so from and in that regard, right? Like, if you have New Game Plus and multiple endings, it kind of encourages you to play the game again and go for the different ending and see how it works out that time. Like that, it's interesting from that perspective in terms of
Mhm.
adding more value to the game because you can play through the second or third time, and there's something there. um but eh, I don't know. I'm not saying it's terrible. It's just personally, I'm not advocating for it. But if it's in
Yeah.
there, I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm not buying the game. Like, no, I'm just all right. It
Yeah, I
is what
think
it is.
I feel kinda the
Yeah.
same way.
Moving on, though. As for side content, bring back pieces of heart. A lot of people are in line with you in terms of bringing back the heart pieces. The shrines were for their time, but nothing beats doing side quests, mini games, and exploring the world only to be rewarded with a piece of heart. Take all the room the game would have wasted on shrines and use it to improve the dungeons. Okay, we got a shrine hater here, but I agree that the shrines aren't necessarily here to stay. I just think they need a way to fill up the worlds, and I'm all for bigger dungeons. I agree with that. Now, to address the shattered glass in the room, the weapons. I like the wording. Should durability return? Yes and no. Hear me out. I get that weapon durability allows players the chance to use more varieties of weapons, but no one likes how weapons just shatter into nothing. Instead, maybe most weapons should degrade over time, doing less damage. You could then take them to a blacksmith to be repaired or just get a new weapon. But your degraded weapons wouldn't completely break. Also, the Master Sword should be immune to degradation. Okay. It's one of the things where I have to kind of read it a second time. Okay, yeah, blacksmith got it. The Master Sword. So the thing about degradation on the Master Sword is that once you get the Master Sword, it kind of outclasses every other weapon in
Yeah.
the game if it doesn't break and like
There's, like,
giving
really
it.
no incentive to get other weapons
Yeah,
at that point.
exactly. That's the problem with it. So I think what they did where it can recharge is kind of like the best way to handle it, unless you just want to accept the fact that once you get the Master Sword, every other weapon sucks. So I don't know. I don't know if I agree. Um, I agree if the Master Sword is extremely hard to get. Like it's done in a way where 99% of people, if not more, are never going to get the Master Sword until the very end of the game. If you want to do it like that, okay. But otherwise, I just kind of feel like it would take away from the overall gameplay loop.
What if the mini dungeons, each time you powered up the Master Sword to a point where the timing was, like, shortened? So, like, maybe it takes 20 minutes. I know it's only 10, but maybe it takes 20 minutes, and after you do the first one, now it's only 15, and once you complete, like, all the mini dungeons, now it's like, "Okay, your sword doesn't have a cooldown now." Maybe.
Interesting.
I don't know.
What if that's what they
Um,
do with shrines? You have
yeah.
100 shrines, and every time you beat a shrine, you have more of the Master Sword.
Yeah.
I'm
Would
not
you
against it.
would you be upset if they didn't give us a ton of weapon options? Like, what if they just went back to, like, you can only use the Master Sword, or you use, like, one sword, and then you eventually get the Master Sword?
I'm not against it. I think having a lot of weapon options gives them a lot more rewards and ways to fill up
Mhm.
the
That is
game world with
true.
things to find. So it's important for that. But in terms of like strictly like gameplay, like I'm not against it as long as they find ways to fill up the world. I'm
Yeah.
okay with it. What I don't want is for there to be a simplified combat system. Like I think one of the worst parts about Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild is the combat's good. Like I would say the combat in a lot of ways is way better than prior Zelda games. But I just kind of think like the sword attacks are lame. Like it's like
Yeah.
hit, hit, spin hit, 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 spin hit. And I just
That's fair.
it's it's repetitive, and I want there to be more variety to the movesets. Like Twilight Princess,
I was gonna ask.
right? Twilight Princess has more variety to the moveset.
Mhm.
Now the problem with Twilight Princess is that while there is variety to the moveset that you can expand on, most of it doesn't matter because every enemy is a cupcake. So they it's kind of it's funny because Breath of the Wild doesn't have cupcake enemies. Actually, I think that
Yeah.
like so, it's unfortunate that they kind of simplified. They didn't the combat's actually is more complex, but in terms of just sword combat, it is simpler. And
Yeah.
so I want them to vary that up. Now, if that comes at the cost of having a whole bunch of different types of weapons, I don't know. I think if the combat's more fun and there's still a way to fill up the world with things to find and do, then that would equal a better game. But I also think they can still have weapons everywhere and just vary up the combat a little bit more. I kind of felt like with Tears of the Kingdom, they had an opportunity to build on the weapon classes they already had because you have three different weapon styles basically, right? Like there's the heavy weapon, there is the one-handed like sword weapon, then there's spears.
Yep.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, that's it. There's three, and so you have kind of like one attack chain. It would have been nice if they added like I don't know a couple more attack chains to each one, and they kind of depend and they all had advantages depending on what the enemy was doing,
Mhm.
just to give us a little bit more to think about while fighting and have us actually paying attention to our enemy a little bit more in terms of what they were doing. And I think that would make the combat significantly better. They didn't though, so
Some of the shrines, you at the end, you find like a little like a schematic type thing, and it tells you how to do a certain sword technique or spear technique.
Oh, see,
Like,
that
oh,
would
no,
be
yeah,
better
yeah.
better than, oh, that can build a
So you
boat.
go not all the shrines, but like some of them will have that in there. Like,
Yeah,
oh, now I know how to. I can do a helm splitter.
that would have been amazing. I would have loved that. That's a really good idea. By the way, shout outs to Boo Mini from earlier for gifting a membership. I don't think I got to see who was awarded the membership, but
It
welcome,
was
whoever you are.
JG.
Did you, was it? Okay,
It was
JG,
JG.
welcome. Awesome. Awesome. I don't think I finished up. Did I finish the post? I don't think I did. I did not finish the post. All right, so let me finish Rockin' Alex's
Sorry.
post here. No, that's fine. I want you to butt in. You're part of the show. You're supposed to offer your opinion, so I'm glad you did. This next one might be controversial, but I'm trying to address something I've heard a lot about recently. Link. We all know what he looks like. We all know his purpose. He's meant to be a stand-in for the player. However, recently, the modern audience isn't satisfied to be represented by someone who doesn't look exactly like him. So what's the solution? You can make a Link. I'm not sure if I'll finish the point. So what's the solution? You can make a Link or girl or switch his hair color, but that still wouldn't represent everybody. What do we do? Well, how about complete character creation? There's a lot of games out there that allows you to customize your avatar, make their height, size, skin tone, and gender reflect your own. Seeing as Link is meant to represent their player, I think this might help satisfy those who want his design to change, while still allowing fans of Link's traditional look to make him look that way as well. Also, they go this route. They should bring back the ability to name your character. This is that I would say it's a
That's very
controversial take.
controversial.
Yeah. I don't want that.
Me either. I'm sitting here like shaking my head like no.
I was actually really happy when I played Breath of the Wild for the first time and there was no option to put my name. I was like, no, I am just Link. And I was like, sick. That's great. I was happy they did that. So for me, like, obviously everyone has different opinions, right? But my take is Link is Link.
Yep.
That's who he is. He's Link.
Yep.
When you're playing a Mario game, you're Mario. That's who you are. When you're playing Metroid Prime, you are Samus. That's who you are. When you're playing, what is it? Horizon Forbidden West. You're playing as Aloy. You're Aloy. If you're playing Halo, you're Master Chief. If you're playing God of War, you're Kratos. Like, I don't
Link's
need.
supposed to be like male, but he's actually like he's very androgynous. They want him to be able to fit both. You know what I mean? He's a pretty boy. Nothing wrong with that though. But
yeah. So, for example, like we're gonna get well, I say we're gonna get. We don't know. It's a rumor, but
Mhm.
hypothetically speaking, right? This rumored Princess Zelda game. I'm excited for that. I think that
Mhm.
would be amazing. I would love to play as Princess Zelda, but it would have to be a spin-off because the Legend
Yeah.
of Zelda games are about Link as the main character. So if we're gonna play as Princess Zelda, it's either A, she's taking a secondary role, or B, she's taking her own primary role in her own sort of separate game series. And maybe that spin-off could become its own thing. Like what if it's like it becomes like Sheik's Adventure and that becomes a chain of games and then Sheik's Adventure becomes as big as Zelda someday. I'm okay with that would be kind of
Yeah.
funny, right? Like if Princess Zelda's game is not called Zelda and it becomes as big as Zelda, but
Yeah.
like I would love that. That would be cool. In terms of character customization, like there are so many games that do that already. I don't need The Legend of Zelda to be in to have another character
The
customizer.
clothes are fine, but yeah, leave Link the way he look like physically
Yeah,
looks.
but they made some serious strides with that though in Breath and Tears because you can customize Link way more than any other prior Zelda game.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
like
think a
that I
lot of
like.
people
That's
enjoyed that.
fine, but I don't want to change his eye color, his height, his
Yeah, I just want
hair,
Link to be Link.
other than that.
Whatever they decide Link is for that Zelda game, great. You know, that's it. So, but everyone has different opinions.
I am very curious what art style they're going to go with though. I have no idea.
Yeah, it's I think it's gonna be more realistic than Breath and Tears. Not
Okay.
realistic like Hellblade,
Will
Senua's
you check
Sacrifice.
them out?
Maybe something closer to that. Not exactly that, but like
Yeah.
very like magical, almost Pixar-y kinda, or How to Train Your Dragon like, but
Okay.
not like How to
Like a
Train Your
little bit
Dragon.
more anime, maybe. Like the eyes, maybe you mean?
Yeah, maybe the eyes a little bit, but like I want something that's it's hard to describe because it doesn't exist.
Exactly. I know. I'm like I have no idea what to expect, but
Yeah, and that's the exciting part too about the next
mhm.
Zelda game. Like when we see that art style, which probably a few years from now, but when we finally see it, we're gonna be like, oh, so this is the next Zelda. It's always a big moment when they do that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
I know that
finishing.
Breath of the Wild trailer though, I was like, because Link looks totally different. He's got the blue
Yeah,
champion tunic and he's got a ponytail. And I'm like, this looks like a Zelda game. Like this is a Zelda game. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about Link with the ponytail, but it did grow on me a little bit. But
yeah,
yeah,
not
that
me.
was like really surprising. I was like, oh,
That
is
was a
this a
big
Zelda
change.
game? Yeah.
That was a big change. But
Do
and
you want the
so
tunic back? Do you want the green tunic back?
no,
No.
well, I mean
You
they
want
can
you
do it.
want different
Like
armor? I guess in an open world game, different armor options
I don't.
makes a
I'm
lot of sense.
open. So like I'm open to whatever they decide the next design of Link is.
Mhm.
Okay, like what I found interesting though is they found a way to give Link a totally new design, and he just feels Link to me. Like I don't
Yeah,
feel like he's
it's
any
true.
less Link than prior Links. Like my brain's not like, oh, who's that? No, like I instantly think Link. I would almost argue like Breath Link almost feels more like Link to me than Green Hooded Link, if that makes any sense.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Hmm.
But it's Link, so you know, it is what it is. Anyways, finishing Rock Phoenix's post here. Finally, the story. I'm thinking it should be about breaking the curse of demise, effectively ending the Zelda timeline and allowing Nintendo to move past that. That's what a lot of people are calling for with Tears of the Kingdom, but instead it just complicated the timeline by adding new lore based on elements from Ocarina of Time. Also, Ganondorf has died before, yet the curse continued, so I don't see his death in Tears of the Kingdom as having even remotely ended the timeline. Plus, that wasn't addressed. I think that, like how Skyward Sword was the clear beginning, we need a game to be the clear end. Okay. Like, all right, so I'm not against having a story where they literally address the curse of demise. And when I say that, not like vaguely, like they're like, okay, Hyrule's been plagued for generations. Let's get to the root of it all. Like they literally call it by its name, the curse of demise. How do we take care of this? Like I'm not against that. And I will say that while Tears of the Kingdom clearly destroyed Ganondorf, like he is obliterated. He's not sealed. Like a lot of Zelda games, they seal away Ganon. No, this guy was nuked.
Yeah.
Right? Right? Like he's done. He's been eviscerated, obliterated from existence. But that doesn't mean the Curse of Demise is gone. They could easily create another Zelda game, and they say, hey, it takes place in the same world as Breath and Tears, but it's a few hundred years from the future, and then the Curse of Demise could enter some other body. And yeah, you could say that. On the flip side, though, right? You could make the argument that no matter what, when there's good, there's evil. Yin and yang. There's always going to be a villain. There's always going to be a bad guy. There's always going to be an antagonist. That's just the way it is. I would love a story, though, where we have a antagonist that isn't necessarily evil, but circumstances lead them to going in that direction. I think that would be cool. I mean, heck, look, there's like the theories that Groose is like the first of the Gerudo. He has the red hair. He's very tall, has the yellow eyes, just like all the Gerudo. That's probably one of the most believable theories. Like I would have loved to have, and he's a good guy. Like he has some behavioral issues, but he fixes them, right? And he has some character growth throughout the exactly. But it would have been crazy. Like imagine if Skyward Sword took a really like twisted turn, and the Cursed Demise entered Groose, and we see Groose battle with that, but ultimately become the first Ganondorf. Like they could have done that. Yeah. So I would love to see a future Zelda game kind of address that. That would be very interesting. Just looking through a few more comments here on the community page, then I'm going to come back to the chat. Lethal Lawn. A world with a dungeon per region at least is a must. Give us all the big dungeons. Less mini dungeons or less shrines, some mini dungeons, big dungeons, tons of awesome side quests and better fights. Yes, I agree. Cosmosis 86. I'd like to see a game set in a city like Kyoto or Tokyo. Take some influence from the Akira manga anime. Motorcycles, subways, Japanese temples, concrete jungles, shops, etc. Yeah, a bit of a long stretch, but could be interesting and have huge potential. Hey, I think Zelda needs to have like the nature. I think that's a big part of Zelda. You know, I think that's what a lot of fans like. They like to see like the green fields and you know the environment in nature, right? Like I think that's a big part of it. But I think you can have some of that and still have some crazy things like what you're saying, like set in a modern city. And then we can look at things, and then that's an opportunity to kind of make environments like that feel legendary and it kind of make it feel magical and mystical. Like there's ways to do that, and that'll be super cool and unique. I would love it. I mean, you know, Wind Waker actually is an interesting game to look at because there aren't that much sprawling green hills to run across. There are some islands, and then when you go under the sea, there's a little bit of that, but it is mostly ocean. But it's still kind of like this big adventure where you're in tune with nature. So I think the nature part still needs to be a big part of it, but I'm okay with having
like an area that's like that.
Or areas, a lot of area. I'm okay with it being a big part of the game, but as long as there's also a big part of the game that's still nature.
Yeah, I don't want it to be the entire game is like that.
But if it's 50-50,
I want that medieval feel.
I'm open for it. I'm open to 50-50. I mean, even, you know, Breath and Tears have a lot of sci-fi elements, right? Like it's not like straight medieval.
That is true.
So, I mean, Majora's Mask has UFOs.
That's true. If they can incorporate it, well, that's fine. Yeah, but
Sam T2000. I propose an ultimate Zelda game where everything is ultimate and nothing is not ultimate, and certainly not penultimate. You're correct. Let's do that. Karen Buckley. Get rid of the memories. They ruin the story. You take that back. No, that's your opinion. We already talked about how we think the memories need to be adjusted a little bit. So, and that's another thing. Going back to what I said earlier, memories are something that were established with Breath, that Tears continued. Memories aren't necessarily going to be in the next Zelda game.
Yeah.
We don't like Breath and Tears are they're together, right? They're a pair. The next Zelda game, I assume is gonna come with a brand new Link, a brand new Zelda, a brand new antagonist, whatever that may be, and if not a different iteration of Hyrule, a completely different land. So, or not, maybe it's not land, maybe it's space or desert or just water, as it was in Wind Waker. Like, it's going to be a different world to explore. So, and with that, the dungeon structure may be very different. The story structure may be very different. The only thing that I think is a guarantee outside of Link being the main character, and I mean, technically, even Princess Zelda is not a guarantee, because you have something like Link's Awakening, right,
Mhm.
where it's not. But Link's Awakening is meant to be a follow up to a prior Zelda game, so
So is Majora's Mask. There's no Zelda.
she's in a cutscene.
All right, all right.
She's in
Fair
a cutscene,
point. Fair point. She is.
but she's barely in it. She's barely in it though, right?
Yeah.
So even Zelda, but the point is though, technically even Zelda's not a guarantee. She's
Mhm.
a likelihood, but not a guarantee. The only guarantee is Link and adventure, and a sword and a bow. I think everything else is up for debate. Some puzzles. That's pretty much all that's guaranteed. But I think the other thing that's guaranteed is it's going to be open air. There could still, but that doesn't mean there won't be some linear story stuff too.
Yeah.
All right, so we got another relatively long one here. It's not as long as some of the others though. This is coming from Link, the Communist Waifu. All right, I've got a couple things for the Ultimate Zelda game. Number one, for me, is the music. I think that the music should go back to the bombastic orchestra style that was in the Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword, with a new exploration type melody that anyone can enjoy and instantly recognize when they hear it. Okay, that's interesting. No more 5 piano notes here and there. We've got a full-on theme. I'm also thinking that for the bosses, they each get a unique theme, maybe even include an electric guitar theme here and there like they did in Hyrule Warriors. So, okay. I mean, like, one of the things I liked about Tears of the Kingdom is they brought back, some very unique themes with the dungeons
Mhm.
and bosses, and they had some really cool themes, especially Colgera. So I'm all for that. Including electric guitar, that sounds badass. So I'd love to see how that would be implemented. But continuing on, number 2 for me are the dungeons. I'm thinking that there should be around 6 or 7 dungeons along with one optional one. The dungeons would be full old school style, and they would limit players' exploration abilities, meaning that there really wouldn't be a way to cheese the dungeon. That way, in the overworld, you have a lot of free exploration like Tears of the Kingdom, but in the dungeon, you are limited to certain abilities, so the dungeon functions better. I'm sensing a strong theme here.
Me too.
Number 3 for me is a story. I'm thinking a return to the Hero of Time or the Hero of Twilight would be good. Bring back a older Link design whose stories weren't really finished. Maybe for a Hero of Time story, we could find out what happens to Navi, or in the Hero of Twilight story, we could find out what happens to Midna. I'm thinking Ganondorf as the returning villain for the Hero of Time story, as in part of the Child Timeline, he actually wasn't sealed away in the Sacred Realm, although they should give Ganondorf more depth to him, like how the Hero's Purpose videos by Major Link showed him having. I don't think saving Zelda should be the goal. Maybe the goal could be finding Navi, and Ganondorf agrees to help Link, only to trick him and to try to take over the Triforce. Maybe the reward for being the optional dungeon would be the Fierce Deity Mask, and for the Hero of Twilight story, it could show Link trying to find a way back into Twilight Realm to find Midna again. I don't know. I mean, those are some really fun ideas. I'll say that I strongly believe Navi is dead.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I think she died at the end of Ocarina
Why?
of Time.
Why do you think she died?
So at the end of Ocarina of Time, there's a part where Link is in the Temple of Time, right, where the Master Sword is. At the top of the room. It's a very tall room, right?
Mhm.
But there's like lights at the top. You see Navi just slowly fly up into the light, and so she flies away from Link. And so I think that's meant to imply that there's a separation between them. But why is there a separation? Well, Link is not a Kokiri.
Mhm.
Navi was presented with a mission by the original or the first Deku Tree of the game, right? And the mission was completed. The fairies are supposed to stay with the Kokiri in the Kokiri forest. They're not meant to be away from there. So it may not even be healthy for her to be out exploring with Link like that, but she has. And her mission's completed. And again, Link is not a Kokiri. So it's just not a natural, permanent bond. It was never supposed to be. She completed her mission and she flies away. Now, that doesn't mean she dies, right? From that. But I think, when you consider that that's just not a part of the natural life cycle of a fairy, you could probably imagine easily that it's probably not good for her to stay in that environment, right?
Yeah, that's a fair point.
But the reason I think she's for sure dead is because of Majora's Mask. It's interesting that what was brought up here, because Link's already on a journey in Majora's Mask to find Navi. He's searching for a friend. It ain't Zelda. You already knew it was all there was. Navi's the one that's not a part with Link anymore. Navi's not mentioned in the game, just that he's searching for a friend. He's in the woods. Why is he in the woods? Because he's searching for a friend that he's no longer with, that he was separated from at the end of Ocarina of Time. It's like, to me, it's almost 100% certain it's Navi. But where it gets kind of grim, one, you can never find Navi in Majora's Mask. But two, the game is very much has a huge motif of death and grief and getting over loss. So I kind of feel, there have been theories about this, but like the way Majora's Mask seems to have been molded, it's meant to sort of express the different stages of grief. And I think that, but basically the adventure of Majora's Mask is Link going through the 5 stages of grief over his loss of his friend Navi, which I think hard implies that she passed away.
Okay. All right. All right. I thought it was Navi he was looking for too, but as you were talking, I was thinking, what if he was looking for Saria?
But we know where she is. She's the Forest Temple sage.
That's true.
Like she's.
But when he goes back to being a child, is she still the Forest Sage?
Well, then we just know that she's just singing her flute at the Forest Temple.
All right. Fair point. All right.
I mean,
sorry.
If you want to say that she doesn't become the Forest Temple sage as a kid because things happen differently, and maybe she changes her mind. Maybe, Link as a kid comes back, then hangs out with Saria, and they decide to fall in love and live together forever. Like, sure. But also Link is still going to become an adult physically. And
that's true.
I think it's one of those things where it's just never going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I just meant in a friend way, not in a relationship way, but okay. But yeah, that is true. He'll grow up. He'll grow up and then it'll be weird, yeah.
I mean, I felt like they made it weird, but they made it weird in Ocarina of Time. They didn't have to make it weird. They made it weird. Like that.
He just like awkwardly leaves. He's like, "Thanks for the ocarina."
Yeah, they didn't have. They made it weird, and even like when she was very somber, right? Like,
oh, you're leaving.
Yeah, like they didn't have to be about that. It could have just been like, all right, well, I'll see you around. They could have done that. If they were just friends, they could have just made it chill. They did not make it chill. They made it. They made it emotional and awkward.
All right.
So, But also, Link always has multiple love interests in his games.
Oh yeah.
Like, so I would say Saria was in there. I mean, he's the hero, so
yeah. Who wouldn't want some of that?
Makes sense. So we got a super chat from Joycey J. Thank you for the super chat, Joycey. So Joycey says, "I'll always want a cyberpunk Zelda, futuristic story and lore of how Hyrule advanced, and an unsuspecting Link who meets some guy in a green tunic with blonde hair that tells him of the great evil chasing them both." It'd be hilarious. Like in this Zelda game, Link does meet some person. Wait. Let me read this through again. And an unsuspecting Link who meets some guy in a green tunic with blonde hair that tells him. So Link is not the guy in a green tunic. There's a green tunic with There's a guy with a green tunic with blonde hair that tells him of the great evil chasing them both. Interesting. Okay. See, when I've read this first, I was thinking, oh, Link finds that version, this game's version of Zelda, and then she tells him that they're getting chased by great evil. And my brain was like, what if Link just thinks she's crazy? But I mean, I guess in this scenario, Link could just think he just finds this random guy on the side of the street. It's like, oh, there's great evil coming, and Link's like, all right, sure, all right, peace out. I'm gonna go hang out at the bar with my friends because we live in the city of the 21st century or 22nd century, since it's, I don't know, cyberpunk or something. So, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I'm all for cyberpunk Zelda. I think could be really cool as long as it have big, giant expanses of nature mixed in. So. I mean, with the Zelda concept that I presented in the past, I think I've told you guys like 20 times already, but like I envision a Zelda game where there are cities that are very futuristic or cyberpunk-esque or steampunk, maybe kind of some combination of that, right? Think like Midgar in Final Fantasy, like that. It can be kind of like that, right? So there's a nice little blend there. But they are almost like Attack on Titan cities where they are enclosed and it's safe within. There are dangers within the city as well, but it's a different threat on the outside. And the outside is an extremely wild, overgrown Hyrule. And in my brain, it's not even like think like redwood trees, like giant. Like the trees are enormous. Like it's everything's bigger than life. And maybe like most of the nature is like more like rainforest as opposed to like typical kind of forest we see in like Western Europe. And so like maybe you don't have horses, maybe you have giant cats. That's your mount, and like they can climb up the trees, and then they also are like giant flying squirrels, so they glide.
Oh my
And
god.
so that's your mount in the
That's
game.
awesome.
Yeah, and also they're ferocious, so they can fight with you too.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Got all the bells and whistles.
That's my concept. The
That
next
sounds
version of
awesome.
Epona is just like a giant wild fiery cat thing.
Would you want like multiple mounts
Um
of like different kinds of animals? Like if we had
So-
like a water mount, like some kind of like dolphin, whale thing.
it depends, right?
Yeah.
Like because on one hand, like in the way I've kind of concepted this Zelda game, I've envisioned it as like there's this. I definitely have inspiration for my own personal cat, right? Right. So my own little baby cat, right? Right.
Okay,
But,
okay.
and so in my like concept of a Zelda game, Link starts off. There's like a prologue to the game where Link is a kid, right? And he's actually raised in a temple. He's like adopted, right, by like kind of like church adopts children kind of motif, right? Nothing too out of the ordinary there, but he's kind of a quiet kid, right? He's fairly shy, but he is being trained and educated by the old man that runs the church. The old man has a history of being a knight of Hyrule in his younger years. His name is Rauru. But eventually you find it's a cat, but it's not like a normal cat, right? Like this is like a weird cat. The cat has like two tails, you can tell it's like a mystical weird cat, right? But it's just kind of like a highly and futuristic species, right? And so you adopt the cat, right? But eventually there is a great fire, or that there's like an attack on the city, right? And so it leads to the apparent death of the old man that was taking care of you. So kind of like your foster grandpa or papa figure who is kind of training you to be a knight someday, right? And you have to escape the city into the very dangerous nature world that no one goes into, right? So presumably everyone in the city just dies. That's the prologue of the game.
Oh god.
Right? And you escape with your baby cat though, right? The baby cat actually tried to protect you, but got injured. And so the old man tells you with his dying words, you have to head in this direction. There's a forest spirit that can heal your cat. And so that's kind of like the game. And then eventually Link passes out, and as he passes out in like this wooded area with his cat, this little baby wild cat thing in his arms, you see like a giant, like almost like Farosh in Breath of the Wild. He's like a giant like dragon spirit beast circulate around him, and then it fades out. Then like I don't know, 7 years later into the future, you see a cutscene where Link is an adult and he's hanging around with these Kokiri-like people. So we bring back the Kokiri, right, in this foresty area, and so there's assumptions made that he made it right at the end, and the forest spirit resuscitated him. And you're not sure about the cat though. You have no idea about the cat.
Okay.
But then eventually he has to go on a little side quest, and he runs into the kind of like how in the beginning of Twilight Princess, Link has to go find his horse.
Mhm.
Except this time he's going out to do something else, and the cat comes in from a giant like tree, and you're like, holy crap, what is this giant like liger-sized orange beast thing? And he calls it by the same name. It's referred to by the same name as it was in the prologue. You're like, oh, okay, this giant wild cat thing is my mount that you grew up with, right? And so you learn you can climb and run around with. And so that's your mount. That's the prologue of the game. And eventually the forest spirit's going to tell you, hey, the evil that destroyed your hometown is now destroying more of the land of Hyrule. It's time for you to set out. You're now ready. And that's kind of like the inciting incident. So that's like
Okay.
my opening concept for a Zelda game.
It sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I'd play it for sure.
I'd play it.
Sounds pretty dope.
So I
Do you
made
ever
it
watch
'cause I
Blue
want it.
Exorcist?
Blue Exorcist.
Because the
I
beginning
think I
was
have.
giving me Blue Exorcist.
I think I
vibes.
saw the first season of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because like the two
Does
boys
he
are
have like a tail or
adopted.
something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they grow up in a
Uh,
church to be trained as exorcists, and then the one ends up actually being a demon, and then basically the
Yeah,
church
I
combusts
did.
on fire.
It
So I
was
was like,
it
it's
was
Attack on
years
Titan meets
ago,
Blue Exorcist. Yeah,
but I did see at least the first season. Are there more seasons?
I think
Hope.
there's two. There's two, and
Oh,
there might be a movie. Don't quote me on the movie, but there are 2 seasons.
I'll look into it. But yeah, Cyberpunk Zelda, bring it. And when Link goes into the cities, because there's more than one city, he can't use the cat in the city.
Okay.
The cat hangs out on the outside. I mean, maybe we could find a way where the cat gets inside, but it causes a stir, right? It's like when you bring
Yeah.
Wolf Link into a town in Twilight Princess, and they
Yeah.
all freak out. It's kind of like that. So in the city, you have to use special pod bike things. Yeah.
What if
So
the
you-
cat can like shapeshift and it just turns into like a little cat for when you're in the city? He's like, all right, you got to blend in now.
Oh,
Like you can't really use him that much, or maybe he can do different things.
Well, I
Like he
like
can sneak
I
through
like the
tunnels.
cat as a companion character.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
the
yeah.
game.
That
Yeah.
would be cool,
So yeah, that would.
Like
I
you
didn't
could
think
reach
of that.
places Link can't reach. Like all of a sudden now he's small, he can fit in like these cracks. He's like, oh, there's a key in there. I can't get that key, but I can send my cat in there to go get the key.
Okay. Yeah, and maybe there's like an in sync thing. Like it's almost like, like kind of like Ash Greninja, where like Greninja and Ash become like one, and so like you can, or like in how in the Wind Waker when you give the birds their pairs, and so like you see through the
Oh yeah.
perspective of the bird.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be kind of cool because there's been an increasing popularity of games that are just cats exploring a
Yeah.
city. So people would probably love that. So I'm not against that. I will say though, if we make the cat like just straight up the companion character, that would be cool. But I do at some point want there to be a companion character that is straight up Princess Zelda. So in my head, the way I have this Zelda game concepted, so there's phases. There's 4 phases. So the first phase, after the prologue, he goes exploring, trying to save Hyrule, right? And at the end of the phase, he runs into a hooded figure because this evil force has been trying to find someone. Hint, hint, it's Princess Zelda, right? And so you run into them. But in the second phase, you actually explore Hyrule with this person. And so they have their own mount, and so it's kind of like maybe kind of like God of War, where like he has the son, father and son sort of traverse the world together. Like it could be basically like that, like or like maybe like Resident Evil 4, Leon and Ashley, kind of like that. Although in Resident Evil 4, a lot of people don't like Ashley because she's kind of like just baggage. Like she's always in the way. It's like, oh crap, she's gonna die. Oh crap, she's being kidnapped. Like this Zelda wouldn't be like that easily kidnapped. Like she fends for herself. It's not really that much of a risk. But at the end of the second phase, she is kidnapped. And the reason it happens is because there's a great fiery enemy, and in this game I have a little bit more focus on story. And so Link has a moment of hesitation because of the fire that he's traumatized by when he lost his adoptive father, grandpa at the church. And that moment of hesitation because of that trauma, Princess Zelda is kidnapped. And that leads to
Okay.
the third phase. Third phase, eventually Link fights off the main antagonist, which is like this fiery Ganon-like thing. And he overcomes, this trauma, right? And that's when he actually earns the Triforce of Courage. Actual true courage. Something I think is interesting about the Zelda games, they obviously Link is a heroic person, but they don't. What I think is valuable about courage isn't having no fear, but being able to do things while you still have the fear.
Yeah.
And so I wish that was better depicted in the Zelda games, like the actual true meaning of courage, right? Being able to overcome fears. So I'd like that to be depicted in a Zelda game, and he truly earns the Triforce of Courage, and at that moment becomes a true hero. And so the way the game is kind of portrayed, it makes it feel like that the end of that third phase where he fights that fiery and like beast is the end, but it's not the end. It's actually just it's kind of like Xenoblade, where you think you're at the end of the game, but like, nope, there's still like 15 to 20 hours more of gameplay here. And so there'll be a fourth phase where now that you've established yourself as the hero, there's some crazy stuff that happens. And so that's kind of like how I envision this Zelda game.
I love it so much. I want it.
Yeah, I was upset when I came up with the idea. I was like, damn it, this is not going to happen.
Yeah.
I
It'd
mean,
be
I don't
cool
know.
anime or something. Like, I don't know that they make that an anime, but it would be be interesting for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have more of a story focus. I want to kind of like think more about how the gameplay would fit around that. That's why the cat thing I think really works for like if this is more of like a very thick, if like the wild is very like thick, you know, like rainforest like environments where there's a lot of giant trees and vines. So it's more so about, climbing up very quickly, like a wild cat could, and then jumping from one to another. I think that'd be like really unique gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
It would fit within that, but I haven't figured out how we handle dungeons yet.
Okay.
I think we just run into them like, whoa, this is really weird structure. What's in that? Maybe that's where one of the special gem things are that will help me find the I don't know what. So I gotta figure that part out. But getting to the chat, I know it's been a little bit because I've been going back and forth in these different like media platforms, reading different opinions of people on the Ultimate Zelda. I'm gonna focus on ads so I can play a little catch up here. Okay. Hello there, Gamebird Classic. What's up, buddy? Always love Zelda talk. It's always fun. Saying Smoke 420 YT. Yeah, the rumor is no Dodo packs, man. I'm good with that too. Although I wish Twilight Princess was first. I am now catching with a conversation. Apparently, the next direct is going to be June 11th. Where is this rumor? Where is this rumor? Okay, all right.
I'm trying to think of.
What is the Nintendo Direct rumor? Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. Apparently, Wind Waker will be July $50, and Twilight Princess will be in October $50. Not against that, even though it goes against my collection theory. But I listen. I just want them to happen. I don't care how it happens. Like, it. I'm not gonna. Beggars can't be choosers. So.
I actually started more recently. I've been like praying like Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess. But now I started thinking more. I'm like, well, what if they did save Twilight Princess with that Wii U tech demo for Switch 2? I was like, if they do that, I wouldn't mind waiting. But otherwise, give it to me on Switch if you're not gonna do that.
It goes against the initial Andy Robinson rumor, but it's been so long. Maybe they just decided to not just repurpose the exact same game from Wii U and do something new. So I'm for that too. Like,
yeah, I'm happy with either though, honestly. But
yeah, I need to know where this rumor's coming from saying smoke. I
Because
feel
isn't
like
the 11th a Tuesday? Do they usually happen? Don't they usually happen on Wednesdays or Thursdays?
well, there's a history of them happening on Tuesdays, but
Oh, okay.
only because of E3.
Okay.
E3 doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
So I would say it probably won't happen on a Tuesday. If we go back to last year, it happened, I want to say the 21st of June, and that was a Wednesday.
Yeah. So that's why I'm like,
So, yeah, I think.
I was thinking that week though, but
Yeah, I'm thinking. I mean, I agree. I think that it's gonna have. Well, hold on. Let me go to 2024. My calendar is all jacked. All right, now I'm in 2025. I'm in the future now, where Switch 2 is a thing. All right, so yeah, I'm thinking. I mean, my prediction is June 12th.
yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm curious where this rumor's coming from. I feel like it's probably not coming for a super credible place, but maybe it is. About to sneeze again. It's like welling up, but it's not so pronounced that I know it's gonna happen.
That's the worst.
Yeah.
It's loitering.
Just trying to have me suffer. Okay. Ooh, Ricardo's talking about a dragon mount or a griffin.
Yeah,
Those are some great mount options.
I was wondering. Have you seen that trailer for Light No Fire?
Light No Fire.
It's not. It doesn't have a release date at all, but they were riding on dragons, and I was like, oh, it looks so sick.
Oh, wait. Yeah, I know what you're talking about now. Yeah, it's like a procedurally generated like open world.
Yeah.
But instead of space, like No Man's Sky, it's a fantasy world.
Yeah.
I think it's made from the same developers, actually. Yeah, what's Light No Fire? You said it was called.
Yep.
Yep. I think we're on the same page. I want that.
Yeah, dragon.
Actually, I like Ark for that reason. You can eventually get dragons and fly around the world with dragons, but it's also a real pain in the butt to get to that point. So
yeah.
It's fortunately my cousin was obsessed with the game, so they facilitated all the heavy work. I was just given the dragon. I was like, yes, and then I got it.
Thank you. Oh,
then I
got
so
sad.
Yeah. It was because that game is crazy because like you can have something you've worked your butt off to get, and you can take it out into the wild, and then you'll run into either NPCs or people or just a lot of monsters, and yeah, that creature you spent a long time to like raise up or build up resources for, dead. You're just like,
I can't do that. I don't like those games.
Well, you better make sure you get some eggs so you don't run into that problem again. Yeah, it's a tough game. Let's see here. Oh, another super chat from Joycey J. Thank you for the super chats, Joycey. Joycey says, what if it's not a cat but a wolf? The Link of old I previously referenced would literally be a previous hero. Okay. What if the previous hero is a werewolf?
It's Wolf Link.
Yeah, what if Wolf Link? Well, what if like that Link, like you think he's cured, but actually over time he develops werewolf tendencies where he has a straight wolf form, he has a human form, but he also has a werewolf form where it's a hybrid, and this is a problem, right? And so like in this future Cyberpunk City, he's not the main Link anymore, right? But he's like this old dude, but there's like this story of, hey, there's like a werewolf problem, and people think, that's just superstition. There's no way, right? And then one night you're doing a quest, and you run into a dark alley, and you see this guy getting mauled, and there's a werewolf. And you're like, what's going on? But you notice that the cloak looks like the old man from the other day that was talking about like these visions of doom that you thought was crazy, and so you chase him, and you realize the same person, and yeah, and so you think he's kind of a problem, but then he reveals that he's not that crazy. And yes, he was a werewolf, and he was mauling someone, but it was like an evil bokoblin thing. It wasn't an actual person. So he's not a bad guy, and he's not actually that dangerous. He has it under control, but you don't think that. But now you're taking him seriously because you realize he's not actually crazy, but rather a badass ancient warrior werewolf man. So that'd be fun. So yeah, that'd be cool. Now, I haven't seen wolves being able to climb up trees. So that would, but maybe it's not a wolf or a cat. Maybe it's something else. Just
a hybrid wolf cat.
It's some sort of fairy beast thing that can do all sorts of cool stuff. Yeah, I mean, what I'm talking about it's definitely no normal cat. Like this one can glide like a flying squirrel. So
yeah, because like I love wolves, so if like they brought anything wolf back, like I'd be happy for it. But I don't think the cat idea with the climbing and stuff would work. The wolf,
you would have to be different.
Yeah,
unless it's just a shapeshifter, it becomes whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, then you can get the mount, the water mount.
Yeah, at that point though, I'd rather just have multiple mounts.
Okay.
I'd rather.
So would you just switch them out then? Like, how would you? Okay.
Like, you would have a different mount.
All right, but if you're like roaming around, you just call them.
Sure.
Like, where do they come from?
So where does the cat come from?
Isn't the cat always with you?
Okay, I see what you're saying. It makes sense to have it always with you, but it's not always with you in Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, but they're spirits. They're not like actual creatures like walking with you.
Well, maybe you just find more than one spirit. You unlock them.
All right.
You get new spirits. Or maybe it's kind of more like, what if this version of Link, it's kind of building off of the idea they have for Twilight Princess, but they didn't really fully convey it well. So like in Twilight Princess, like there was he was kind of like the hero of beasts or something. Like I don't remember the actual. I think he was the hero of Twilight, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like they had some emphasis on like animals. Like he was a farmer. He was able to wrangle the goats. He would pet cats and dogs, and he seemed more in tune with nature. Heck, the Forest Temple, you worked with monkeys. Like there was definitely a huge emphasis on like being in tune with nature and working with animals. He would call in owls and or hawks. You actually have hawks.
Yeah.
Like there were gameplay mechanics centered around animals, right? But then they kind of like became less important as the game progressed. It was just kind of like some neat things you could do in the beginning, and that was it. I feel like they were building on this idea, but they didn't fully realize it. Especially because he was a wolf, right? Like he could talk to animals too as a wolf. Like there was a lot.
Yeah.
Imagine a Zelda game where they build off this more so, where he can talk to animals, or maybe he doesn't necessarily talk to animals, but there's more of an in-tuneness with nature and connecting with animals. I just saw Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes last weekend, by the way, and the apes actually are in tune with nature, and they like call hawks to like fight with them. So like maybe you can call in hawks, but you have to connect with an animal, right? So maybe when you get to the water area, at first there is no mount. You have to find one. But you then become in tune with it. Like there's like a spiritual connection. And with the spiritual magical connection, then you can be like, hey, I'm in the ocean. I summon thee, right? Or like you connect with the great wolf spirit and I summon thee, right? Or you're in a giant canopy somewhere and you summon the great flying squirrel spirit. There you go.
I like it.
Yeah. Actually, it'd be kind of funny to have a great flying squirrel spirit. I'm kind of thinking about like the different spirits from Twilight Princess. There was the 4 different light spirits. One was a giant snake. One was a giant monkey. One was like a giant stag. I'm trying to remember. I think was the other one a bird? Was it an owl?
Like an owl?
Okay.
I think that one was Eldon.
Yeah.
Was the
owl. I don't remember. I think the Pharaoh. I'm not going to even try to remember.
There's a goat. Yeah, Farron was the goat. And then Ordon one is. I think Ordon is a monkey. Ordon Spring is the goat. Yeah. I think Farron is the monkey.
Would make sense with the monkeys in the Forest Temple, if that's And then I think the serpent is the water one.
Linearu, for sure.
That makes sense. I don't know. I feel like we've come up with some pretty fun ideas tonight. I think it was a productive Zelda conversation. Is there any idea that you would like to kind of hash out before we close out?
I did want to talk about the underwater exploration.
Oh, right. Yeah, you told me about that. Well, let's dive in. That
Yeah,
was
so
not intended.
I thought it was. It was good. Um, so before Tears of the Kingdom came out, I was actually kind of hoping we were gonna get underwater exploration because since they were using the same map and we didn't know about the Sky Islands or the depths at this point, so I was trying to think of like how they could expand the map or like give us new things to do. So when we didn't have the underwater exploration, I was like a little disappointed, but at the same time they gave us the Sky Islands and the depths, so it kind of like made up for it. But I think it would be really fun to be able to explore like underwater, like forgotten cities or like lost ruins and just find different like landscapes underwater. Like maybe in like the Elden area, it's like really, really hot water. You have to get like a certain type of like suit that you can actually be under there. And like maybe some of the temples are down there.
Okay.
I think the way the swimming mechanics work in Twilight Princess, I don't feel like those were that bad personally. But Skyward Swords, I thought they were kind of not very good. I'm trying to think of how they were because I did play Twilight Princess on the Wii and the Wii U, and I don't remember getting like pissed off. Like in some Mario games, like the underwater was kind of hard.
How'd you feel like with Skyward Sword? Are you referring to Skyward Sword HD, Skyward Sword on Wii, or both?
Well, I guess it could technically be both, but I'm referring to the motion controls because I didn't play Skyward Sword HD with the buttons. I still use the motion. So like having to turn I guess the Joy-Con it might have been easier. Joy-Con was probably much easier, but like the Wiimote, it was like I don't know. I feel like it was clunky trying to like steer Link underwater. With
Well,
motion
I didn't play Skyward Sword HD without the motion controls. It was great.
Okay.
Game's still good.
I think I tried, but then I think the camera you can't use like ZR for the camera anymore or something. I don't remember. Something with the the L button. You can't like pan, right? Because you have to use your sword.
You can't. Yeah, you have to. You can only use one at a time. So you have to. I think you hold the L button so you can move the camera. When you're not holding the L button, the right stick is for your sword.
Okay.
So it's.
Yeah, I remember being tripped up because I did
definitely out of the ordinary. At the same time, though, the original Skyward Sword didn't have free camera control at all, so it's not a necessary mechanic.
Okay.
But I just really enjoyed having a free roam camera in Skyward Sword, something that was not available originally. But it was tricky having to switch between that and just normal sword play. Yeah, I had no problems with water exploration in the Skyward Sword HD, but I also didn't play with the motion. I experimented with it. I played enough with the motion controls to know how they feel, just to see it, and I don't have an issue with it. But also, I feel like I'm one of those people that is rarely annoyed by control things. Like I'm just like, all right, this is what it is. I just roll with the punches. I'm not as picky, but I know a lot of people were. But I mean, if there's no motion controls, then why are we worried?
Yeah.
So.
But
I think it'll be okay.
I just think like a lot of like some people don't like underwater exploration because of the way you have to go about exploring. Because like the way the controls are.
How do you feel about Majora's Mask? With the water, when you
play as Zora Link, yeah, that's good too. Yeah. Yeah.
I like moving around like a dolphin, and they had like a dolphin dash in Skyward Sword, which I thought was cool. Like a good.
Okay, yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah, you had to like spin up and like go or shoot up high. Yeah.
I actually feel like I didn't love it in Twilight Princess just because I think it was slow.
Okay, yeah, it probably was a little slow, but like overall, like the way you
weren't getting
like,
janked up. You weren't like, oh my god, how do I move or get out of this?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And then you could get like iron boots, and then you could actually like walk around on the surface of the.
Yeah, you had shared with me clips. Well, I haven't clicked on the clips yet.
It's okay.
Is there something about the clips that, like?
Well, it was just the one. It was from Genshin Impact. So they have this one area that came out last year called Fontaine, and it's based on like the Hydro region. So it's like a very water-based region, and this is the only region where you can do underwater exploration. And I just think that the way they handled the controls was really well. So I don't really even know that you need to play the clip, but
I'm watching the clip.
Okay. Here,
Can I share it?
Yeah, if you want to.
I don't know if it
So
makes a difference,
I'm
but
just gonna use my controller here to like kind of. It's kind of hard without the game to remember though. That's always the worst. But you like hold. I think it's like square. So you hold one button to go up, and you hold another button to go down, and then you just use the stick to like move your character to swim around, and then the other one to move the camera. It doesn't get like all janked up, and then you only get like one ability at a time while you're underwater in Genshin. So you'll have different puzzles or obstacles to get through, and you'll need to find these different sea creatures that give you these abilities. So I don't know that you necessarily would need that part, but I just think like the buttons themselves, like just the way that it works.
yeah, I don't. I guess I don't think I actually have to show the clip.
Yeah, I don't think you have to show it either. I'm sorry, I was just
It's someone swimming
thinking
in
of
water.
stuff. So yeah,
Yeah. I'm eating my Skittles. That's what I'm really
it's
doing.
okay. It's okay.
I just whatever works. Like
Yeah,
I don't really have a problem with water exploration, but I do wonder that maybe they just didn't do it in Breath or Tears because they knew people would have issues with it.
yeah,
So they were just like, let's just not even deal with it. Let's just ignore it. I feel like that was probably the real reason why we didn't have any water exploration in there. You could argue that it just would have been a lot more work than it would have. It would have placed a whole other layer of like how do we deal with this with the physics? Like, like I think it's probably a combination. But I would like to see them return to having underwater exploration. I didn't like that you couldn't explore underwater in the Wind Waker. Like I always like playing the Wind
yeah,
Waker. I was always like, man, if only I could go underwater. And I get it. Like, but it just would have been neat if they had a way to do it. Like maybe they could have been like how it works in real life. Like, okay, you can't actually go that deep underwater because of literal pressure. So maybe you
mhm,
would have needed like a diving kit or something. And you can only go so far down, right? Like they could have done something like that that would have made it so you gotta just explore underwater, but there would have been limitations, and they could still use the Hyrule is still even deeper underwater, and you can't get that deep. So like that would have been cool, and heck, would be
yeah,
even cooler if there were certain points where you could get just deep enough where you could see something weird that might hint at something being under there, and then when you actually get to that point in the game, you're like, oh, that's what I saw.
yeah,
That would have been cool. So I hope that there is underwater exploration, and I love your idea about like okay, like there's different ruins that we could find under there. You had me thinking about I don't know. There's this relatively recent thing. Apparently, was it like Lake Michigan or something? There's like a mini Stonehenge like structure that's like hundreds of or thousands of years old.
oh, wow,
Um, like yeah, it's like from before the times of the pyramids or something.
oh,
I'm bastardizing the story, but
yeah,
something
it's
like
okay.
that. In one of the Great Lakes, it was found relatively recently. So like would be cool to just kind of explore underwater and find these different ruins. Like, I mean, think about like in just like under in this the Hyrule and Tears of the Kingdom, right? Like under that scenario, like, what if you went underwater and you find ancient ruins as you find all throughout Hyrule? You're like, oh, I wonder where that's from, and it has you thinking, like, okay, what could have that been for? So, I like the idea, especially if like there's actual like fun puzzles around it, and it's not just like all dark, murky, and boring.
Yeah.
It'd be cool. I don't know. Is there anything else you want to kind of go beyond for, like, or is that pretty much it?
I don't know. Do you want to talk about enemies at all?
Nope. I
No.
think
Okay.
why.
I was just gonna ask
Just
if there were any enemies that you wanted to come back at all that weren't in
yep.
the last two. Yeah.
I don't know
Yep.
how to say it without it sounding weird, but yes,
What do you mean?
dark nuts.
Well, that's what I want too, so it's okay.
We all want dark
We all
nuts.
want the Dark Nuts back and the Iron Knuckles.
Yeah,
I really like
yeah.
the arrow pulse in Twilight Princess, like the Sky Lizzle pulse there, where you have to like use your hook shot when they have they put their shield up.
Oh yeah, yeah. Those were cool.
Yeah.
The flying Lizalfos. Yeah, I love those. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of enemies they can bring back still. There's those random. I mean, they don't have to bring these back, but there is a random little I don't even know what they're called, but they had like the spiked plates on them that you could claw shot off. They were almost like
Oh, yeah.
they sounded like random picks, but they did not look
Yeah, I know
like
what you mean. I feel like I knew what
yeah,
they were called at one point. I can't remember now. But they're
yeah,
I think they're in a few games, but they're just a little different looking. Like I feel like they're in a top-down Zelda game too, but I could be wrong.
probably.
Bless.
Thank you. We had the frogs, which kind of remind me a little bit of the Dodongos, but
Yeah.
they're still not the Dongos.
No.
I want the Dongos to come back. I miss the Dongos. The Dongos were cool. And if you're gonna bring Dodongos, give us a giant Dodongo. That would have been nice. I really kind of thought that Loft Wings were a little bit of a missed opportunity in Tears.
Me too.
Yeah,
Me too. I really when they were showing the sky, like when they first showed us that, it's like, oh my god. And then Skyward Sword HD came out relatively around then. I'm like, what if we get Loftwings as mounts and we have to register them like horses? And I was like, that would be cool. And then there were no Loftwings.
none.
But I
Yeah,
shouldn't
I
have
mean,
expected it anyway. But I was
it
like,
made
man, that would have been
made a
so cool.
it made a lot
Yeah.
of sense. It made a
And
lot of sense.
apparently they were going to add Skyloft runes, but they couldn't find a purpose for it. It's like, why do we have Lon Lon Ranch ruins then? Why? Why
Yeah.
couldn't you give us Skyloft runes?
I don't like to be on the Tears of the Kingdom hate train, but it's just kind of like there's just so much they could have
Yeah.
done that they didn't. I mean, there's always, I think no matter what they do, there's always going to be that. There's like, oh, but they
Yeah.
could have done this. Oh, but they could have done this. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the skies are underutilized.
Yeah.
Like, I know they were kind of going for, having a lot of empty space to explore, and that's we can again. We eventually get to a point where we can basically fly around, and that is cool. I do like that, but I always want more. I am
Yeah.
insatiable. So, yeah, that would have been nice. Apparently, I'm getting Ruby requests, and she was just in the room, and she left. Ruby, she's not gonna come. She might. Ruby.
If they want double pets, I have my dog I could call in here.
Ruby, do it.
All right, here I just gotta take these out.
Ruby,
open the door.
She's not gonna come. Ruby.
The people want to see you. Maybe. All right. Come on. Maybe you can see her. Move that.
Aww.
Come up. Say hello.
Aww.
There you go. Puppy
What a
face.
sweetie. What a sweetie.
Like, yay, I missed you. Alright.
What's their name?
Zinni?
Zinni. Oh, that's
Yeah. Yeah, with the Z.
I'll get Ruby. She's probably like, why are you calling me? Hold on.
Ruby and Zinni, let's go. Back. Thank you. Thank you, Having Hope 5. Also, hello, chat. I never said hello to the chat. Yep, she's a blue healer. She's a good girl. Ruby! Come here. Come back.
She's here.
Come back. Come up. Ah! I lost my headphones.
She's still here, kind of. She's like, all right, you called me for this.
Come on, let them see you in all your glory. I don't think she thinks she can come up here. We're just like, look at our animals.
Ruby.
There you go.
Hey.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
I lost my headphones when she came up, though.
All right, there. The animals made an appearance. Is Zinni a girl or a boy?
Girl.
Oh.
Some catnip for Ruby.
Yeah, Varen Verby, thank you for the super chat. I'll get her some good catnip. Thank you. Appreciate that. But yeah, so I think we should wrap up the show just because it's getting late for me and I've been struggling having a healthy sleep schedule. So I'll this is the last few minutes, right? Any final points or questions you guys would like to be addressed or ideas you want to present? shoot now. But within 5 minutes, we're wrapping up here. Also, trying to hold back from incessant sneezing. So, I had put up a poll an hour ago. We got 96 votes in. And I had asked, how do we want the structure of the next Zelda? And I presented 3 options. Full open, like Breath and Tears. Full linear, like Skyward Sword. Or something in between. And coming in at 3rd place at 7%, we got full linear, like Skyward Sword. So even though there's a lot of people, saying Tears, kind of did it wrong, like the linear defenders, it is still a minority, at least according to the poll on this live stream. Full open, like Breath and Tears, is only at 25%. What it appears most want, coming in at 68%, is something in between, which, based off all of our conversations tonight, that's kind of been the most common sentiment. We like the open world, but we want them to find ways to integrate some cool linear story moments and also the big dungeons we saw from prior Zelda games that were linear, or at least semi-linear. So yeah, I'm for it. I'm with it. I want it. I agree. Skywalker 67 suggests, what if they add a horror element in the next game? There's always some level of horror. You could argue.
The gloom hands.
The gloom hands are creepy.
Whoever watched my stream last night knows I need to really balance my mic because I got scared out of my mind and I screamed like I was like on fire or something. Jumped out.
Broke everything.
Like,
it's hilarious.
So what happened was I was shooting bomb arrows at the gloom hands, right? And they were all like further away. And then all of a sudden, as like the smoke dissipated, one was right in my like here on the screen, took up half the screen. So I screamed. And then they grabbed me and I died. So but yeah, there is some horror. And the what are they? The dead hands at the bottom of the well in the Shadow Temple. Is that what they're called? There's dead hands. They have like the arms coming out of the ground, and then the.
In Wind Waker, they make them like robotic but demonic at the same time.
Yeah.
They're like, it's scary. I mean, Majora's Mask is like all spooky goth, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
I'm into it. A lot of people straight up ignored the depths in Tears because it was too creepy for a lot of people.
Yeah, it was too creepy for a lot of people.
I loved it. I was like, I'm going head first into the darkness. No lights, no problem. And then I ran into a Frox.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was amazing.
I remember I was down there for the first time he did like the camera quest. And then I started roaming around and then I kept getting my ass kicked. I'm like, well, I'll come back later.
I love it.
When the hearts broke, I was like, oh my god.
Like, this is gonna get bad.
Yeah, it was totally new. Yeah.
Yeah. It was awesome.
And you have to have special food. Only I think the Sundelions and the Sun Pumpkins.
Yeah, and they're not easy to find.
No.
Yeah, and I didn't start looking for them until I realized I needed them for the final fight. Yeah, so I was like, well, I'll just do with what I can. I ended up cheesing him, so. But we got another super chat here from Taker. Thank you for the super chat, buddy. Taker says, I think I'm leaning towards Breath of the Wild being better than Tears of the Kingdom at this point. How are you guys feeling? Breath of the Wild has just so much charm. Tears of the Kingdom couldn't replicate. I think if you play Tears of the Kingdom first, you're going to like Tears of the Kingdom more no matter what, because it's just, for many people, it just feels like more. I still think there are reasons to play Breath over Tears. But there is a lot of that. For me, Breath of the Wild is still my favorite Zelda game, but I'm not sure if that about Tears. Like, I think Tears could eventually change, because for me, like, it changes over time. Because I would say for a long time I've always just kind of said, yeah, Ocarina of Time is my favorite Zelda game, and it is, but also like it changes. Like there are times I want to play Wind Waker more. I want to play Majora's Mask right now. I'm thinking, man, Majora's Mask is so good, you know. And I recently played through Twilight Princess, and that was such a good time. I love Sky. Like I don't dislike any Zelda game. It's kind of just like there are times like one more than the other. And I do think that over time, I tend to grow a different level of appreciation for each Zelda game. That even happened for Breath of the Wild. Like, I wasn't sure about Breath of the Wild for years. Like, I was like, man, there's a lot of ways this game is better than other Zelda games, but there's other ways it isn't. And it wasn't until right before Tears came out that I kind of like decided, you know what? I think Breath is my favorite Zelda game. And so I feel like for Tears, 5 years from now, I'm going to be doing another playthrough. I'm like, huh, you know what? This game, it's special. It's the new GOAT. And then the next Zelda game will come out a week later, and I'm like, oh my god, what was I thinking?
Well,
So,
I take the opposite. I think I like Tears of the Kingdom more than Breath of the Wild, but Breath of the Wild can't really exist without Tears of the Kingdom, so
it feels like a
kinda
Mario
weird, but
Galaxy 1 and 2 thing.
yeah. But I like the story in Tears of the Kingdom a lot better, and I also really like a lot of things that reminded me of other games. Like even though they weren't very like special or anything, but they brought Pose back. Like they were just a
Hmm.
currency, but just the fact that there were Pose,
It was cool.
I honestly I cried. I'm an emotional baby, but I cried because I really want to know what those were. So when I picked them up, I'm like, they're Pose.
I usually cry whenever I
But
finish a really good game.
yeah,
I don't sob, but I'll have like I'll be misty eyed. Be misty eyed. Um, happens only for the goats though.
yeah.
Yeah.
The old maps kind of reminded me of getting treasure charts in Wind Waker then too, and
Oh,
the
that was
gloom
a
hands
sweet little
even
thing.
remind me of like the ones in Wind Waker too. They kind of have that same
Because they had that
aesthetic.
purple feel to
Yeah,
it. Yeah, with the dark, like the dark with the purple around it. Yeah,
yeah.
that makes sense.
And I just
Yeah,
remember
they're
throughout playing it, I would just be like, "Oh, this reminds me of this game, and this reminds me of that one." So, Tears of the Kingdom and Twilight Princess are kind of battling for my favorite.
yeah. Twilight Princess had a lot of potential for me, but it
Mhm.
was too easy. Just ruins it. But yeah, they're both good. Different day though. I play every Zelda game for a different day of the week, and then I run out of days in the week. Lethal Lawn asks me, "What do you think about all dungeons being completely linear with only one power being usable? You get the power before or near the start of the dungeon." I was with you until the second half. Like I don't like the idea of only having one. I mean, in moments, I'm okay with having only one power. Actually, I think that might be a great way to do shrines. Like imagine so like you know how we have some of those shrines and even Event Tide Island was the first challenge to do it where they strip you of all of your
Mhm.
armor and everything like that. I
I
like
love those shrines.
I like that, but imagine if
Mhm.
they kind of mixed that out more. It was not just that, but they're like, hey, you can only use this ability, or you can only use that, or maybe they change the properties of the environment. Maybe you have to play with like,
Mm.
half gravity or slow speed, or like there's extra fire. Like, I think it would have been cool if they had a lot more shrines like that, where they kind of changed around the properties or your abilities more so. And so with that in mind, I would like there to be a lot of mini dungeons or shrines or what have you that are like that. Um, and I like the idea of getting a new power in a big dungeon, but I don't want the entire dungeon to just be about that one power and nothing else.
Yeah.
I'm actually a big fan of like I want to go into a dungeon with tons of challenges, and I do like having more than one way to solve a puzzle. Like it's been like that in prior Zelda games too. Like sometimes you can use certain items that will help you in different ways. Even and that obviously Breath and Tears are built upon that idea far more so. So I think like what you're suggesting kind of goes against it. Now maybe Nintendo likes that idea. Maybe they're like, oh, they're not going to expect us to do this. You can only use one power per dungeon. Um, and then I'll be really upset if I don't get that power back. So, um, although I will also concede that in the Champions Ballad DLC, the beginning of it, the one hit obliterator, that was really cool.
Yeah. that I struggled a bit with that, but yeah, that was really cool.
I love that. It was a really great way to mix it up, and I also understand that you couldn't have it forever.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
so I'm not against I'm not against the idea of having these moments where you only have one power or some sort of special ability for a limited amount of time. But for the dungeons themselves, like the main ones, I want it to be like, okay, this is like an ultimate test where I can use all my abilities however I choose. I have a variety of ways to solve it, while it's still also being semi-linear, because I do think that's the best way to handle a dungeon. Because it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier. We want to like, what's the phrase you used earlier? Like we want a like
Like a roadblock.
we want a roadblock, right? We want to be there. We want there to be things that halt us, and we are not supposed to get around it. Maybe we might try to find a way around it, and maybe there are some smaller hurdles we can get around, right? But in that way, I think it leads to usually the best kind of like cinematic narratives for a dungeon, and also just better puzzles.
Yeah.
All right, but I think we covered a lot tonight. Everyone, thank you for watching. Likes are appreciated, but most importantly, make sure to check out Alyssa's channel, which is linked in the description below. Sky Sword Alyssa, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was cool. But I hope you all have a good night. Take care.
Bye.
I need to come up with an intro outro. I always just like